Hello, good morning, and welcome to our Horizon Europe Implementation Day on Proposal Submission and Evaluation. Newcomers, people who contemplate about participating, and we will give a lot of basic information on what Horizon Europe is and the first steps in preparing and submitting a proposal. We have two other variants of implementation days that will take place mid-October and beginning of November. The next one will be focused on what we call the grant preparation phase. This will be addressed in particular to successful applicants who enter now the stage of preparing a grant agreement with the Commission or the executive agencies. And the third implementation day that we will have at the beginning of November will be dedicated to running a grant, all the rules and all the things you have to take into account when you actually got a grant and when you are about to implement your project, and then you have to report and so on. So three different instances of these implementation days, also targeted to slightly different audiences. But let's come back to today's meeting. So in terms of the technicalities, I should also mention that each of the presentations will be followed by a questions and answers session. The questions can be asked via Slido. So we will soon show you a slide which gives you the details. You go to Slido, and the code for today's event is HID, so Horizon Implementation Day, HID. You can start immediately to put in your questions, so at any moment. We will then gather them at the end of each presentation and go through them and trying to reply to them. Before you put in a new question, it might be good that you look at the list of questions that are already there, that came from other participants of the meeting. And if you see that you had exactly the same question or a very similar question, please don't ask it again, but put a like on the question of this other person. And then we will go through the questions after each presentation in the order of number of likes, so that we can at least have enough time to reply to the most popular questions. I think that is it already in terms of introduction, and I can go immediately into the first presentation. I will have the pleasure to give this first presentation myself, and it will be a general introduction to our program Horizon Europe. So this is the slide showing the high-level overview of what Horizon Europe is. It is a funding program giving grants or also some other financial support in the area of research and innovation. It is a program that is part of the 7-year budgeting cycle of the European Union. So it also runs from 2021 to 27, meaning we are currently right in the middle of the program implementation. In terms of structure, it contains 3 big parts. Starting on the left-hand side, there is a special program dealing with defense. It funds research actions and development actions in the area of defense. And it has its own specific program and its own specific modes of implementation. In the middle, we have the big block that is, in a certain sense, Horizon Europe in a stricter sense. This is the specific program implementing Horizon Europe and the European Institute of Technology. This part consists of 3 so-called pillars, and I will afterwards go through each of the pillars and say a few more words. What are these all about? And then on the right-hand side, we have a program under the so-called Euratom Treaty, which is apart from the EU treaty. And here we have a program for research and education dedicated to nuclear subjects, fusion, fission, and also actions of our joint research center. In what follows, I will focus very much on the middle part, meaning the specific program implementing Horizon Europe and TEIT. So, just to give an impression on the money we are talking about, I said this is a 7-year program from 21 to 27, and we have available around 95 billion for these 7 years. You also see how more or less the budget is split between the different parts of the specific program on Horizon Europe. You see that the biggest part with 53 billion is dedicated to the so-called Pillar 2, which we call Global Challenges and European Industrial Competitiveness. Behind this, there are the collaborative projects in the first instance that we fund to boost the collaboration in the field of research and innovation between entities in different EU countries and beyond. The second biggest part is dedicated to the first pillar, called Excellent Science, 25 billion, and I will come to a bit more detail what is behind this Excellent Science pillar. And then we have the third pillar with 13.6 plus 3.4 million, having a part called Innovative Europe and another part Widening. Before I go indeed into the details, I want to focus on some real novelties of Horizon Europe compared to the predecessor programs. So one important novelty is what we call the European Innovation Council. This program funds in particular SMEs and mid-caps that are very innovative and have the possibility to create completely new markets or extend markets in certain fields by disruptive innovation. We have under this European Innovation Council 3 types of funding, 3 types of projects. One is the so-called Pathfinder, which are collaborative projects that span from the early technology to a proof of concept. Then we have transition projects which bridge between this proof of concept and commercialization. So they are between proof of concept and pre-commercial. And finally, the biggest part is dedicated to what we call the accelerator projects. These are not only grants, but they also provide equity investment to single applicants, in the first instance SMEs and startups, meaning that the Commission, by giving this equity contribution, becomes in a certain sense a stakeholder in these companies, and these projects reach from pre-commercial to market and scale-up. Another important novelty are the so-called EU missions. These are big activities with very bold and inspirational and measurable goals, which have a greater impact for society and policy making, and of course also for the European economy. We started in Horizon Europe with 5 of these mission areas. They are listed here: adaptation to climate change, cancer, healthy oceans, seas, coastal waters and inland waters, climate neutral and smart cities, and soil health and food. These missions behind these areas are, so to say, seed funded by budget from Horizon Europe, but the aim here is, of course, to attract resources also from other sources to create the respective impact. Another novelty in Horizon Europe is the approach to the so-called European partnerships. So we do not only fund grants directly from the Commission or the executive agencies, where the subjects are defined in the political process with the member states. We also fund, in a certain sense, consortia that have a longer duration and where we collaborate already for the definition of what is to be funded with certain groups of stakeholders. And here we have three different types of how this is working. I start on the right-hand side. So the most institutionalized or fixed way of doing these partnerships are the so-called institutionalized partnerships. Here we have created independent legal entities, in particular the so-called joint undertakings. And these independent legal entities get a big amount of budget out of the Horizon Europe budget, and they then publish calls themselves and look for the best projects to fund. And these partnerships can be bilateral between the Commission and industry groupings, or also trilateral, meaning between the Commission, industry groupings and member states. And we have quite a list of them going on currently. In the middle, we have what we call the co-funded partnerships. These are public-public partnerships, meaning the Commission and a group of member states agree on a joint program, and then these co-funded partnerships fund calls in cascade again for having transnational collaboration. And on the left-hand side, we have what we call the co-program partnerships. Here, the partnership is only in the first phases of defining of what we want to fund. So we agree on calls, specific topics that will then be published in our normal work programs and where applicants can apply according to the normal procedures and will be funded, and the grants will be managed by our executive agencies. Another important horizontal aspect of Horizon Europe is international cooperation. So the main principle is that the program is open to participation from many parts of the world. And for some groups of countries, the program is not only open for participation, but also for getting funded. This concerns in particular the collaboration with the low and middle income countries. So entities from these countries can participate in our calls and can also get funded. The most intense form of international cooperation is, of course, the cooperation with the so-called associated countries. So there is a whole list of countries who have signed agreements with the Commission, pay into the Horizon Europe budget, and in exchange, their entities can take part in Horizon Europe as if they were in a member state. Yet another important horizontal aspect is open science. So this principle of open science is mainstreamed throughout the program. It has very practical consequences also for the running of your projects, and there are even stipulations in your grant agreements that you would sign. One of them is that all publications that result from the projects that we fund have to be published immediately in open access journals. The same applies to the data that are created in your projects. So data should be put into open access repositories, and they should be shared to the maximum extent. Of course, the principle that applies here on all these open science aspects is as open as possible, as closed as necessary. So there is no obligation to make everything public that you produce in terms of results. There are, of course, other means of protecting your intellectual property rights. But if you decide to publish, you have to publish in open access journals. And there is a lot of support actions. There is an Open Research Europe publishing platform, which you can use to fulfill this obligation of open access. Here is just an overview of the current state of implementation. We have about 14,000 signed grants running in Horizon Europe. On these grants, we spent so far about 36 billion euros. So we are a bit above 1/3 of the overall budget currently spent. And in all these projects together, we have close to 88,000 participations, among them close to 17,000 SME participations. The success rate is in the order of 20%. It is, of course, variable between the different parts of the program, but this is the overall average. This is just an illustration to show you that you can yourself also look into the data of the program. We have something that we call the Horizon dashboard. This is just a screenshot of one instance of this dashboard. It is interactive. You can filter for many different categories. You can even download data. So that is a tool that you can use in order to drill down and can look exactly at the figures and the information that is of particular interest to you. The hyperlink is in the slides that will be made available. Okay, going a bit more through some of the parts of Horizon Europe in detail. I start with Pillar 1, Excellent Science. The overall goal is to reinforce and extend the excellence of the science base. And we have 3 actions under this pillar. The first one is the European Research Council, also having the biggest budget in that pillar with 16 billion about. This European Research Council funds in the first instance single partner projects that are driven by an excellent principal researcher. So we give the grants to individual host institutions, but the decisive factor in running these projects and also in applying for the projects and also the important factor in evaluating the project is the main principal investigator. In the middle, we have the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. These are, in the first instance, fellowships. And the main characteristics for these fellowships is that they have to be transnational. So if you intend to go for a few years from France to Spain into a university or a research institute, this might be of interest to you. You will get funding for a research project that you will carry out connected to this transnational mobility. And then the third part under excellent science are the research infrastructures. So we speak here about the big installations that exist in different parts of Europe, in different member states. And what we fund here is not the creation of such new infrastructures, neither the daily running costs. What we fund here is, in the first instance, the transnational access. So if you have a research idea but you need one of these big installations, it can be an accelerator, it can be a big database, a big collection of biological material or whatever, and this is not in your country, you can ask for support to get access for a shorter or longer period, to go there, do your project there, and then have the respective results. Okay, I think I mentioned a lot of this already. European Research Council, first pillar, excellent science, focused on principal investigators, and we have different project types here that depend on the career stage in which this principal investigator is at the moment. So if we have starting grants for the early career researchers, consolidator grants for the somewhat more experienced, and advanced grants for the, so to say, senior researchers. And you also see here on the slide that the amounts given to these individual projects are quite substantial. So for starting grants, the principal investigator gets 1.5 million, consolidator grants up to 2 million, and advanced grants even up to 2.5 million. We also have a fourth form, which is called synergy grants. These are then not grants to individual researchers and their host institutions, but these are grants where a bit of collaboration is required, and there the consortium can even get a maximum of 10 million euros. I am now switching to the pillar 2, where we said we have over 50 billion available, more than half of the total budget of the program. And here we are now in the top down. In the excellent science pillar, I forgot to say, we are in the bottom-up part, meaning we do not predefine any subject areas or specific topics in which we want to fund. You come as the principal investigator with your idea, no matter in which part of science, and then it will be evaluated. Here in pillar 2, it's exactly the opposite. In pillar 2, we go top-down, meaning we define from the very first level, meaning the legal basic act of Horizon Europe, down to the individual core topics, what we want to fund in terms of subject areas and impact to be achieved. And this pillar 2 is divided into 6 so-called clusters, which you see here in the bubbles: health, culture, creativity and inclusive societies, civil security, digital industry and space, climate, energy, mobility, food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment. And you can see how these more than 50 billion are distributed between these clusters. You see that we have 2 rather big clusters, which are 4 and 5, digital industry, space, and climate, energy and mobility. 2 of them are, in a certain sense, middle size, the health and the food cluster, and then we have the other which are in a somewhat lower range of budget allocation. Switching now to the third pillar, called Innovative Europe. We spoke about the European Innovation Council already, which is the main ingredient of this pillar 3. We have under Innovative Europe also an action that we call European Innovation Ecosystems. This is more a policy-related field of activities where we try to connect with regional and national innovation actors. And finally, under pillar 3, we have the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. This is, by the way, one of the partnerships, one of the institutionalized partnerships we mentioned. So there is a dedicated institution, the EIT, located in Budapest, which funds in itself then big projects which are the so-called knowledge innovation communities. And these knowledge and innovation communities then also publish cascade calls for final beneficiaries. We have the separate part, widening and strengthening the European research area. The widening part is targeted to a list of countries that are performing, in a certain sense, below average in research and innovation. There is a specific criterion that was used, an indicator, to define this list of countries. And for these countries, there are very dedicated actions called teaming, twinning, ERA chairs, and so on, that are that have the objective to boost the participation of these countries in all the other parts of the framework program. And then finally, again, under this part, we have some policy action, which is dedicated to reforming and enhancing the European R&I system. Finally, not to forget, in my first slide, I said there are 3 big parts. The third big part of the Horizon in the wider sense is the Euratom Research and Training Program. Here the focus is on nuclear safety and security and radiation protection, and the novelties compared to the predecessor is that this program has an increased focus on the so-called non-power applications of radiations. That means using radiation in medical applications, other industrial or space fields. Saying a bit more about what we expect when we fund projects. Of course, it is not just for boosting science. This is the first objective of Pillar 1. But overall, and in particular in the Pillar 2, the grants are supposed to create impact beyond the science and innovation field. And these impacts are defined in the Basic Legal Act as so-called key impact pathways. There are 3 big blocks of impact pathways. First one is the scientific impact, then we have the societal impact, and third, there is the group of economic impacts. And this may sound a bit abstract, but all these expected impacts are broken down in our calls for proposals and in the topic descriptions on what we actually expect also in a particular topic. And when you start preparing your proposal, you should make yourself familiar with these expected impacts. And there is also a section in your proposal where you have to describe how you contribute to the expected impacts under your topic. And it's always also good to have the bigger picture to see how these impacts in your particular topic relate to the higher level expected impact in the so-called destinations that are defined in our work programs. So this is again just for illustration. I will not go through the details. Just to give you an impression on the overall logic. So it all starts with the overall priorities of the European Union. So at a very high level, meaning the Green Deal, for instance, the Fit for the Digital Age, which are then in our program broken down in the so-called key strategic orientations into impact areas, and then expected impacts that we define in our annual or biannual work programs. And then the breakdown goes further in each individual call topic, describing what we want to achieve with the funding in the longer term. And then, of course, you contribute to this with your project results. And already in your proposal, you have to put some emphasis on what would happen if you achieve these results? How could they contribute to the expected impacts? We also emphasize the potential measures to maximize impact, and here we speak at the level of the individual projects, in particular about dissemination, exploitation, and communication. So this is not only a nice to have, this is an obligation which is also fixed in the grant agreement that you will sign when you have a successful project. So you have to prepare a plan on how you disseminate, exploit, and intend to exploit and communicate. It's also about the management of the intellectual property, the management of the data, and so on and so forth. These are all elements that you have to take into account already in the preparation of your proposal. And now, before I come to the end, I try to give a certain outlook on what will happen in the years yet to come in Horizon Europe. First thing to say is that there are, of course, a lot of possibilities yet open stemming from the 2024 work program. So there are quite some calls and call topics open and forthcoming. So you will find these, and the next speaker will tell you more in detail how to find these. But giving you an outlook on what would happen beyond, So the main lines are fixed in what we call the strategic plan. The strategic plan for 2025 to 27 is adopted, it is publicly available, and I will just mention in one or two slides what are the high-level objectives under this strategic plan. You might ask, why is the work program for 2025 not yet there, and what kind of calls will be published in 25? Here we have to say the 25 work program is still under preparation. It is in discussion with the member states soon, and the plan is to adopt the 2025 work program and then publish the respective calls in spring next year. But as I said, there will be no gap because there are still a lot of open possibilities stemming from the 23-24 work program. So now coming to the main orientations of this 25 to 27 strategic plan, we have 4 strategic orientations. All 4 orientations are, of course, supposed to contribute to the main strategic objectives that are shown on the right side: green transition, digital transition, and a more resilient, competitive, democratic and inclusive Europe. So quickly going through the 4 orientation. Orientation A is about promoting European autonomy, and this is supposed to be achieved by developing key digital and enabling and emerging technologies, sectors and value chains. That was the number A. Orientation B is about the ecosystems and biodiversity and the management of the natural resources, including food security and healthy environment. Orientation C will deal with making Europe the first digitally enabled, circular, climate neutral and sustainable economy. And orientation D is about a more resilient, inclusive and democratic European society. So we cannot yet tell you how the individual calls and topics will look like, but you can already be prepared that they will all contribute to one or the other of these strategic orientations. You will also see in that strategic plan that are already expected impacts defined under each of the 6 clusters. This is very small print here, and I will also not read it out. So if you want to go in more details, look into the strategic plan or look at the slide that we have here, and you will see what we will expect in terms of impacts in the 25 work program under the 6 clusters. A part of this strategic plan is also the idea to have a second set of European partnerships. I told at the beginning that there are 3 types of partnerships. You will find only 2 of the 3 types in this overview, meaning that the intention is to create some new co-funded and co-programmed partnerships, but for the moment no new institutionalized partnerships, meaning there is no new joint undertaking currently in the planning. I will not read through the list. You can look at this slide yourself afterwards. And I think I finish here to give us a bit of time for potential questions. Thank you very much so far for the attention. And I see we have already the first questions on the screen. I start reading them out. So first question: how many different template application forms are now accepted over all actions? Where to find the currently relevant template application forms? Pertinent question. So a part of our funding and tenders portal that my colleague Olivier will present in a moment are the so-called reference documents. And within the reference documents, when you choose Horizon Europe as the program and you go to the part that is called templates, you will find standard templates. However, when you start preparing a proposal, you find the relevant template directly in the proposal submission system. So don't use the forms, so these examples that are in our document store, but simply start preparing a proposal, and then you land in the system in the instance that is pertinent to the topic that you have chosen, and there you will find exactly the application form that you need for this call topic and for this type of action. So there is no possibility to do it wrongly, I think. Okay, next question. When is the work program for Cluster 3, 25-26 going to be available? I think I mentioned it. The plan is to have all the work programs 25 to be adopted in spring next year. I cannot be more specific, I'm afraid, at the moment. Possibly not March, but rather April. Next question regarding open access publishing. Is it possible to write in a budget for open access publishing fees into grant bids? Yes, this is possible. So if you intend to publish in an open access journal that charges fees for the open access, this is eligible cost. But again, our general advice is that in case of doubt, you can also publish in our platform, which is developing more and more into a very well acknowledged open access journal. But again, these kind of costs are eligible. Okay, the next question I have replied. How much is the remaining Horizon Europe budget? So by and large, we have seen that we have spent about 35 to 36 billions. The overall is 95. I let you do the calculation yourself. If I can do it quickly, it's 59 still available. So there is still quite a budget available, even if we are already in the middle of the program. Next one, does innovation include communication actions, meaning proposing innovative tools and approaches to communicate science and technology to society? In principle, yes. I assume the question has in mind that we have specific topics where we fund specific projects that are dedicated to innovating the way we communicate. I'm not sure whether we have this. If we have it, it would be under the so-called Cluster 2, which deals with the humanities and social science. But I cannot now tell you whether we have exactly such kind of topics. So you would maybe follow the next presentation and you would then get a hint on how to search for such things. Okay, next question I replied already. Next one, what is the eligibility for applying for this grant? For applying this grant. Okay, that opens a whole field. Maybe just to say the very basic rules. In our grants, we fund legal entities, meaning institutions. So this is the first thing to say. So you cannot apply as an individual person normally. It is also in the Pillar 2, where we have collaborative projects. You cannot apply as a single institution. You need a consortium. And if you are in Pillar 2, the minimum rule for this consortium is that you need 3 partners from 3 different member states or associated countries. This is the minimum. The normal project size in this Pillar 2 is at the order of about 10 partners. But then the eligibility in terms of what kind of organization you are is very open. So we fund research institutes, we fund universities, we fund companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, NGOs, and so on and so forth. But if you are interested in the details of the eligibility rules, there will be other implementation days, and there will also be other presentations today where we go a bit more into the details. Next one, can postdoc researchers apply for this grant? What expenses are covered? What is the period? Yes, postdoc researchers, of course, but again under the condition that it is not the individual researcher applying and getting the grant. It is always researchers together with their organization. So one important hint is, of course, if you want to have a project as a single institution that is focused on you as the principal investigator, the first thing to look for is the European Research Council. And if you are a postdoc, you are probably in the area of the starting or consolidation grants, so in the first phases of your career. Otherwise, in the collaborative projects, of course, these projects need research staff, and postdoc researchers, as any kind of researcher or innovator or scientist, can become a staff in such a project. But then you will be a part of a bigger consortium. Next question, are there efforts underway to simplify Horizon Europe processes? There are far too many documents and annexes and sub-annexes to cross-reference for each call. Yes, we have, of course, efforts to simplify. The main effort currently go into the details of the financial management, so not exactly what you mention here, but also in terms of the documentation and the cross-references. We are about to try new avenues. You all know that artificial intelligence is here to come. We started by making the search a bit more powerful into our system so that you find easier what you are looking for, and we are exploring other possibilities to get easier access and have easier information about things that you are actually interested in. So, point taken, this is an important thing to be done in the future. Next question, do collaborative projects with scientists from the UK fall within international cooperation now? No, because the United Kingdom is now an associated country. It was the case before they were associated, then they were indeed third country participation. Now the United Kingdom is associated, and meaning that their institutions can take part at exactly the same conditions as institutions in member states. Next, is it useful to get in touch with your national contact point? I would say clearly yes. The national contact points are structures that are governed and run by the member states. So the Commission doesn't have a direct grip on them. But we are, of course, in contact with these national contact points. We have regular meetings with them. They have privileged access to our information and to questions. And I would recommend you very strongly, if you in particular are a newcomer, that you get in touch with your national contact point. You find them in a database also on our funding and tenders portal. And of course, one of the big advantages is that they are closer to you and they speak your language. If you contact us, normally the lingua franca would be English. Next one, should the ERC grantee have or get a permanent position in the host institution to be eligible? That is not necessary. Of course, the ERC grantee should be an employee of the host institution. What kind of employment contract is not prescribed by us? Is a researcher without a permanent position eligible for synergy grants? Again, similar question. there should be an employment relationship between the host institution and the researcher, but we don't prescribe which kind of employment relationship. And I'm afraid I have to finish now the reply to the question so that we can get on time to our next presentation. And I will ask my colleague Olivier MARGANNE to join me here in the studio, and he will now present you the tips and tricks to navigate through our funding and tenders portal and the first steps in getting into finding funding opportunities and partners. Olivier, please take over.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Olivier MARGANNE, and indeed it is my pleasure to introduce the funding and tenders portal to you. We will try to go and see the different parts that you will need to access when you want to actually apply for a funding opportunity. So something which is maybe very high level, but which you need to be aware about is the fact that the funding and tenders portal will give you personalized access to the tools depending on different layers. The very first one being the EU login account, which is really your account as a person, as a unique individual. And this EU login account will be linked to one or several PIC numbers. So this is the participant identification code, and this is the identifier for your organization. And on top of that, we have also all the roles that you see at the bottom of the screen. This is something that we'll not have to care about for the time being. This is something that takes place once you're part of a successful proposal and you need to manage your grants. So I will focus today for the presentation on the first part, what you need to do to get an EU login account, to get a PIC number, to find your call for proposal and start the submission. So first thing first, let's start with the EU login account. So really creating your account as a user. It's very easy to do so. I suppose that most of you already have an EU login account. There is just this register button on the top right of the screen. You just go there, you fill in your name and professional email address. You will receive a link via email, and when you click on this link, you will just have to set up your password and you're good to go. So that's very easy. There is one thing though that we very strongly recommend is not to share your EU login credentials, and this goes also by not actually using functional mailboxes. So please, if you have someone that works in, let's say, at the secretariat of your institution, and you have this functional mailbox which is shared by people, it's not a good idea to use this email address for creating an EU login account. Why? Because when down the road you are actually managing the grant and this email address will receive a role, it means that anyone having access to that email address will be able to act on behalf of your email address of that EU login account in the system. So we will not be able to say which person did what at which point in time. We just see what the EU login account did. So it's important that everyone has an EU login account which is linked to the professional email address. So once you are logged in, you will see here on the screen you have on the left-hand side the personalized access to the IT tools, what we usually call My Area, and everything which is about your EU login account is on the top right. So for example, if you click there, you have among the other options My Account, and this is the place where you will actually be able to manage everything which is related to your EU login account. I have highlighted the little gear icon, which is the place where you can actually change your password. But you see that there are many different options available, some of them being about the mobile devices. I'm talking about the mobile devices on purpose because you may have seen that you receive a pop-up window recommending you to actually enable the two-factor authentication. So this is something which obviously is not limited to the Funding and Tenders portal. You will see more and more websites that actually invite you to enable two-step authentication. And the principle is always the same. It's that once you have a login and a password and you try to log in on a website, anyone having access to that information can impersonate you. So that's what cyber criminals will do. They will impersonate you on a website. If you use a physical device to confirm your identification, then you need to physically have this device available to confirm your identity, which is the whole principle behind two-step authentication. Two-step authentication can be done via different ways. The main one being the EU Login mobile app. So you can either log in using a QR code or a PIN code from the EU Login mobile app. It's available both on the App Store and on Google Play. So there's no limitation in the kind of devices that you will use. And this is one of the most convenient ways to actually use the two-factor authentication. I still left the authentication via SMS here. There are talk about this option maybe being gradually removed. So I would not recommend you to go for that, but just know that for the time being, it is still working. And even if we start phasing out this possibility, you will be informed. This is not something that will disappear from one day to the next. You can rest assured about that. What I want to emphasize when it comes to two-step authentication is that since, when we're talking about the Windows computers, since Windows 10 at least, you can use as well the Windows Hello system to identify with a two-step authentication. So there is a similar system for Mac users. The principle is that you use what is called a trusted platform. And this is just, I would say, a fancy way of describing your own computer. So the PIN code or the facial recognition or the fingerprint that you use in order to access your Windows session, so the Windows Hello, can be used as the two-step authentication. So you can actually use your own computer and type this PIN code in order to validate your authentication. So this can be more convenient than using a smartphone, for example. So in case you want to manage your mobile devices, all of this can be done in the EU Login screen in My Account, and you can actually define several mobile devices if need be. So if you want to enable two-step authentication, you can see on the screen EU Login. You click on your name, and then you will have this security settings option, which will take you to the next screen where basically you first need to register your mobile device, and once it's done, you need to properly activate the two-step authentication. So this is a 2-minute process that will enable you to have a more secure EU Login account. Then you will receive this confirmation, and every time that you will try to log in the Funding and Tenders portal, you will have this drop-down menu allowing you to choose among the different options that you have enabled for your account, and that will be the two-step authentication. So that's it for the EU Login part. Now I will talk about the participant register, which is the way to actually identify your organization to get the PIC code, the participant identification code. If you want to go on the portal, this is where it happens. You have this funding drop-down and participant register. Just for your information, this is an option which is also available under procurement. This is the same menu. And once you click on it, you have this screen here where you can check whether your organization is already registered. And if it is not, you have the blue button, register your organization. So fairly simple. Once you click on it, you will reach this kind of screen. This is something that you need to be familiar with because the same system is reused in many places of the Funding and Tenders portal. You see that on the top you have this, what we call metro line, and the principle is that you complete every step after the other in order to complete the process. So in the case of registering your organization, you see here that you need to identify the basic information about your organization. Then you need to provide a bit more in-depth data, some legal information, define who will be the authorized users to access the organization. Then you will have just a summary screen, and then you will have a PIC number. So this can be done in a few minutes. I mean, if you have the proper documents available at hand, then I would say that in 15 minutes, maybe you can register your organization and you will receive the PIC. There is a trick. So yeah, that's what I just displayed with the metro line. The person who registers the organization receives a role, which is the self-registrant role. And this is really the person that will be the contact person with the Commission services until the LEAR is appointed. You should get familiar with this term LEAR, which is Legal Entity Appointed Representative. And this means that this will be the person that will be confirmed with the Commission services to be the beginning of the chain of trust. So that person will be recognized as the person having the legal power to provide more access rights within your organization. But this happens once your organization is part of a successful proposal. So before that, you can just register your organization and receive the self-registrant role, and you will be the contact person for your organization. And as I said, once you register your PIC via the participant register, the PIC is in a so-called declared status. It means that it can be used in a proposal when you want to start submission, but if you are part of a successful evaluation, your organization will need to be validated by the validation services. So this is a step which is done later and which will allow you to have your PIC number as not only declared but validated. And once this validation is done, you can reuse it for all the further participation in EU funding projects. This is something which is done by the Central Validation Services in the Research Executive Agency. It is done only once. And in case you need to contact the validation services about whatever issue about the validation of your organization, then please go into the participant register itself. So log in, go in My Organizations, and there you will be able to actually chat with the people from the validation services. The reason why we ask this is that it allows to avoid the use of emails that may get lost, or you may not have seen it, or maybe it doesn't reach the right person. Every discussion which is started inside the participant register is logged, so we make sure that everything is actually read and addressed. So there are just a few further steps when it comes to the validation process. I will not go into detail because this is a bit out of scope for today's meeting. Just know that once you have registered, the legal data of your organization needs to be verified and validated. So this is the validation process that I just described. The LEAR needs to be appointed, so legal entity appointed representative. And then, depending on the cases, there might be a financial capacity assessment needed. But again, I will not talk about this in detail. So now you should have your own EU login account. You should have the PIC number. So now you can actually start searching for funding opportunities. So just to explain a bit how this is all organized on the Funding and Tenders portal, this is maybe overlapping a bit with the previous presentation, but in the Funding and Tenders portal you have different programs which are available. And within those programs you have calls for proposals. And within those calls for proposals you may have one or several topics. And when we talk about topics, this is important because those are the individual pages that you will actually browse on the Funding and Tenders portal. When you go on search funding opportunities, you will actually look for topics, but at least you understand how this ranks within the hierarchy, I would say, of the work program. So you have those two menus. I will focus on the funding part because I'm more knowledgeable about this, but just know that for procurements you have the same menu. You can look for the opportunities over there. The difference is that the funding leads you to grants, so non-profit opportunities to have activities funded by the EU. And the procurements are for tenders. So this is when the EU is buying goods or services at a fixed price. Then those are two different types of contracts, and so they are separated here in the portal between funding and procurements. But now let's go in funding. We are looking for funding opportunities. You see that this is the page as it appears by default. So you have the filters that appear on the left, and this is what you should use in order to filter down the results. You see that here by default we have 354 results, which are the number of open topics as of now, because the screenshot was taken yesterday. If now you are searching, let's say, for renewable energy and just providing a little more information, you see that I have 13 topics available. So those are the 13 topics which are open right now for submission in the field of renewable energy. Sorry. If you click here on all filters, you will have even more possibilities for filtering. Depending on how advanced you are, how knowledgeable you are about the different programs, this might be useful for you or not. I think that the filters on the left-hand side, if you are a beginner, are more than enough to begin with. So, if we click on one of those topics, this is what we get. So this is the topic page, and this is divided in several sections. You see that there are several frames that we see on the screen, and they are summarized here in the navigation menu. So you have all the information which is quite descriptive about what this topic is about. I will talk a bit more in detail about the partner search announcements. You can also start the submission, so restart preparing a proposal. And then if you need to find some more tailored help, then you can look in the last sections to get the said help. Now, if we go a little bit lower on the page, you see that we have here the partner search announcements and the start submission options. I will now talk about partner search announcements. So, you found this funding opportunity, but you need to form a consortium in order to apply. It might be useful to go into the partner search and see what is the expertise on offer. And if you don't want to look for expertise offers, then you can propose, you can offer yourself your own expertise and see whether you will be picked for a consortium. So you see that, for example, this is, again, real information for the topic that I have clicked. There are 160 expertise either requests or offers. You can see that you can filter here on the top. So the difference, the expertise request is a consortium looking for one or several organizations to join the existing consortium, and the expertise offer is that you are offering the expertise of your organization. I'm talking about organizations, but you see that we don't only have organizations, we also have persons. So as a person having an EU login account, you can actually create your own person profile and also submit partner search announcements. I just showed a way to look for partners in the context of a very specific topic, just to know that if you go in funding partner search, this is another way to search for partners. So you go in funding, click on partner search, and then you will reach all the partner search announcements that have been posted either by organizations or by persons. So if you look here on the screen, you can see that on the right you have persons and organizations. Let's talk for now about the person profiles. So as I said, if you have an EU login account, once you log in, you can decide to publish your own person profile. By default, it will not be visible, but if you decide to do it, then this is an example of what you can see if you decide to do this. Now, this is an example, but yeah, so actually this is my own person profile, which is published on the portal. So if you are looking for my name on the Funding and Tenders portal, this is what you will see. But behind the scenes, so once you log in, you go into my area, my person profile, you see that you have a lot of information that you can enter. You have all those different tabs here, and you have all the different fields that you can actually decide to fill in or not. So again, as I said, by default, this is not shown publicly. You need to actually go at the bottom of the page and decide to publish the information. And the thing is that you can really decide at a very fine-grained level what you want to display or not. So this yellow eye means that this will be displayed, and when it's grayed out, it means that this won't be displayed. So the information is in the system, but it's not displayed to the people who will look for my information. So I just showed you one version of my person profile, but if I decide, for example, to hide my employment information, then this is what you will see. So you are really in full control of the information which is displayed there. And again, I cannot stress enough that it will not be shown by default. You need to actively publish this information if you want to. Now I said there's a person profile, but there's also the organization profile. So this is something for which you don't need to do anything. Once the organization is registered, this is information that will be available for all the people which are looking for your organization. So there is no personal data which is shown here. It's just data which is gathered through the portal, which shows, for example, so the general information about your organization, the information about your past participations and in the EU funding programs, and the other existing partner search announcements. So again, if we go a bit below on the page, you see that you have the different partners with whom this organization has collaborated in the past, and you see the list of projects that this organization is involved in. And you can always contact the person which is responsible for the project, and you can also contact the persons from the organization. This is a field that was highlighted in the previous slides, and I'm talking about it because if you click on such a contact button, you will have this kind of form. And what I want to say is first that the information of the recipient, so your information, will never be disclosed through this form. So the name and the email address that you see are the information of the person who sends. So it's my own information because I clicked on the contact button. Then if I'm using this form, I need to abide to the terms and conditions of use of the Funding and Tenders portal, which means that I cannot officially contact organizations for commercial purposes, for example, or to spam people. This is something which is monitored behind the scenes. So if we ever notice that there is an abuse of the functionality, this may lead to sanctions. And the sanctions is that, for example, the EU logins can be blocked completely in the system. And we have also introduced this CAPTCHA system so that it actually minimizes the risk of abuse through robots. In the case that you are facing a spamming or a phishing attempt, this is not frequent, but this can happen just like with most big websites. What to do? So the first thing to know is that you do not have an obligation to reply to an email that you received. So if you think that something is suspicious, then please don't reply. Ignore the message. What is important is that the European Commission services will never ever ask you for personal information or even information about your organization via email. If you need to provide information, you will have a place in the tools to do so. So what the notification can do is sometimes take you directly to the right place in the portal. But if you have any suspicion, then go directly on the portal and try to find the right place. And in case you doubt whether the notification is genuine, actually you will receive a notification on the portal itself, which will be a copy of the email that you have received. So just to show you what it looks like, once you are logged in, you see that you have this bell icon, and this is the place where you can see all your notifications. And you see that all the notifications that I have received here, so this is a different way to show them, but those were also sent via email on my email address. So you receive an email, you're not sure whether it's a genuine one, go on the portal. If you don't see it here, then be very careful. It was very likely not sent by the European Commission. This is a point that I wanted to talk about as well. So you might have heard about the client centricity initiative that was launched a few months ago. This led first to the revamped version of the portal, which was launched at the beginning of the year. But this is also taking the shape of new functionalities. And one of them, which is already available for you, is the recommendations. So once you are logged in with your e-login account and you use the portal, this information will be used to recommend information for you. So for example, here I have clicked on that topic once, and this is shown in my recommended topics for myself in my own case. So I have only used the portal once to prepare this demo, so I don't have a lot of information. But of course, the more you will use it and the more refined the recommendations will become. This is not the only new functionality that is available. Some new ones are being prepared as of now and will be rolled out very soon. For example, the possibility to save the searches that you do on the portal. This is something that will be available in the next few months. Now we reach the part about proposal submission, which I will very briefly describe. I will really stay at the beginning of this in the very general details, because I don't want to spoil too much the presentation of my colleagues, which will be very detailed about this. But just to tell you that if you want to start a proposal, you need to go on the topic page itself. So you look for the funding opportunities that you are interested in, and you click on Start Submission. Once you have created a draft proposal, so it can be even the very first step, but once it's in draft mode, it has been submitted, it has been withdrawn, it has been refused, whatever, all your proposals are available once you log in under My Area, My Proposals. So if you have started a draft proposal and you want to continue it, then you need to log in and go there. Don't go on the topic page again. And so this is a little spoiler for the next presentation, but the proposal is composed of two parts, basically a form that you will need to fill in online, and then some documents that you will need to download, edit, and re-upload into the system. But again, I will not talk about this in detail. This is what I just mentioned. This is on the topic page. Start submitting a new proposal, a brand new proposal, and once it has been created, I log in, I go in My Proposals, and this is the list of all my proposals. Now I will just go one step further already and talk a little bit, very little, about the grant preparation. Because what you will do at the level of the submission phase will have an impact on the grant preparation. Meaning that the person who actually initiates the proposal into the system will be later recognized as a primary coordinator contact, and every main contact person for each participating organization will become a participant contact once the grant preparation phase is reached. Don't be scared. I'm saying that this is how the impact that it will have, but it's never definitive, so it's always possible to change it afterwards. But those roles are the slides that I showed at the very beginning of this presentation, which I will not discuss today, because this is only valid once you reach the grant agreement preparation phase, so you need to be part of a successful proposal. There is a link at the bottom of the slide if you want to know more detailed information. But what I can tell you is that if you create a proposal, you will get this role, so the top role at the level of the project for your organization, and every main contact person will become participant contact. So the top role at the level of the project for the participating organizations. So this is the coordinating organizations and every participating organization. So again, I will not go into detail, just know that there are roles which are valid across the whole organization, like the LEAR that I was mentioning, and some others are only valid for one specific project. And if your organization is involved into many projects, then you will have many different project roles, while those ones will remain valid across the board. That's about as far as I will get about the different roles. Just know that the organization roles typically go in my organizations and the project roles typically go in my projects. So again, this is more detailed information that you don't need right now. It's good to already have a first glimpse of the complexity that might happen, but this is as far as I will get on this topic for today. Just a useful tip, which is often overlooked, so I think it's worth knowing about this right now. If you want to know whether you have a proper role at the level of the organization, at the level of the project, or the level of the proposals, once you are logged in, go there and click on My Roles. And if you do so, you will have a list of all the roles which are linked to your EU login account. It can be useful, for example, if you are the self-registrant, this will show here in the organization roles. So you know that you are the person who registered the organization and you have still the role of self-registrant. Just to briefly mention the fact that if you are interested in past projects and the results of projects that have been already funded by the European Commission, you have a whole section about this on the Funding and Tenders portal. This is the project and results menu, which can show you, for example, I have just selected a few screens. This is the list of all the EU funded projects. So you can decide to look for projects depending on the given program, on the given topic. If you know the name of the project as well, you can search for it. And once you click on it, you will have detailed information about said project. This is, for example, what it looks like when you click on one project. So you have all the information which is available here. And again, only publicly available information and no personal information is disclosed. Another option in the project and results menu is the research and innovation results. So here there's plenty of information about the Horizon Europe program, also Horizon 2020 if you are interested. Again, not going into detail here, just know that you have, for example, the Horizon Results platform, which can the participant can actually go and publish their own results. Sorry. And the Horizon Results platform. The Horizon dashboards, this is another possibility which is available under the research and innovation results. So you can find a whole array of useful dashboards which you can drill into if you are so inclined to find all the information that you want. And you can also export this information in case you need to produce reports or just any kind of documentation. And I'm reaching the end of my presentation, which is already quite long, but hopefully you already understood what are the main different sections of the portal and the main steps that you will need to go through to start applying for funding. If you are lost, then please go and visit the guidance and documents section. You have different options there. One of them is the online manual and IT how-to. So those are two different guides. One, the online manual is really centered on the business processes, while the IT how-to is centered on the IT processes. So the IT processes, you will have a lot of screenshots. You will have some videos that will show you where to click for the different parts of the process that you need to actually carry out. There are also the FAQs, the help desks, and the different support services. A few videos which will also explain some details to you, like, for example, how to appoint a leader, how to appoint a legal signatory or financial signatory. So don't hesitate to go there. There's plenty of information to be found. And my last slide is about this. So the Research Inquiry Service is the help desk which is dedicated to everything which is Horizon Europe. So if you have any question about the program or about the Funding and Tenders portal, you can go there. This is a form which is available also via the Funding and Tenders portal itself, but you have the direct hyperlink here in case you need it. And this is the end of my presentation. So we still have a few minutes now to tackle the Slido questions, which will appear on my screen very soon. Hopefully. So for the time being, I still see my slides. So it's on the mix effect. Yeah, sorry, this is I'm accumulating both roles now of presenting something and also during the technical management of the event. So there might be some hiccups, and I apologize for this. If you haven't asked any question, you can go and have a drink. Next presentation will start at 11, but so ME8, number 5. Yes. Okay, so only 2 questions. That's perfect, because then we didn't lose too much time. How can a user add an existing and verified organization under My Organizations? So the thing is that you will not add an organization, you will be given a role, an organization role within this organization. So for example, if you yourself register the organization, as I said, you will get the self-registrant role. If later, during the validation of your organization, so you're part of a successful proposal, your organization is validated, and you are the person which is supposed to become a leader, this will be done at the level of the validation. And then there are also some roles which I did not talk about, but for example, account administrator, this is the person that can actually appoint, that can assist the leader. This is a role which is granted by the leader himself or herself to the different people. So you don't add the organization, but you are given a role, an organization role at the level of the organization. It's the same principle for the project. You do not add a project in your list. You are granted a project role in a given project, and then it will appear in My Projects. So exactly the same system. Next question. Every project which was won must be published on the portal. So I don't know in detail, to be honest. I know that the information which is there is the different results that you can display about the project. There's no personal information. That's something which I'm sure about. Now, whether it has to be published, I would say so, but I'm not 100% sure. So don't take my word for it. Maybe it's not. Oh, okay, more questions here. So how do you know when new calls will be launched in the future? Are there certain moments where future calls are announced? There may be some news items which are published. So if you go on the news and events section, there might be some news announcing some calls. The calls which are already published but for which the submission service is not yet available can be found in the search funding opportunities. They will appear as forthcoming options. Otherwise, for the time being, I don't think so that you can see. Maybe there's still the calendar option on the search funding opportunities. I would need to double check, but that would be those will be the main ways of being informed about the upcoming funding opportunities. So how can I set up alerts with keywords to get notifications of the calls of my interest? So again, there's no real functionality for that for the time being, but this is a functionality which will be rolled out soon to save your searches, to be informed about new items which match certain keywords. So it will be deployed during the next few months, and we will inform you in due time. So don't worry, it will come. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have more time than I thought. I already have an account, but I changed the email address. Can I change the email associated with my existing account, or do I have to create a new account? You are supposed to be able to change the information about the EU login account in the EU login screen that I showed at the beginning of my presentation. In case you can't, there's still the possibility to talk to the help desk. So just address the help desk and say what is the issue, and this is something that can be done. Next question, what is the best way to find related tenders and partners for the field of interest? So the two ways that I showed are the best ways. So either you have found a funding opportunity and you are looking for partners for this specific funding opportunity, so on the topic page itself, or if you are using the partner search, then you can type some keywords, and those keywords will be used to find the different people, different organizations that also work in that field. So I would say that those are the main ways to find partners in the field of interest. Relating to the PIC, how can a PIC be deleted in case an institution has two by mistake? The thing is that we should be careful about the deletion of a PIC, because if there is any information linked to this PIC, then it will be completely lost, and this can result in blocked access to the PIC. Usually, you should inform the validation services which will merge the two PICs into one single PIC. So this happens that two PICs are merged into one, so that we avoid deleting one and blocking some people by mistake. Next question, what do you need to do so you can see the evaluation of the proposal when you are not the person who created the application for the consortium? So when it comes to the evaluation part, that will be for my colleagues, so I will not address this, because to be honest, I don't even know the reply myself. How do you change the LIR? So again, this is already one step further. You already have an organization with a LIR. Maybe you have lost contact with the LIR. That person has left the organization. There can be many cases where you need to change the LIR. The best way to do is either to go, you have an organization role, so you go in My Organizations, and there in the participant register there is a field where you can request the change of LIR. It's not automatic, so you can request a different person, but that person will have to be validated again. This is a mandatory procedure. And in case you don't have access to the organization's data, then you can go into the FAQs and look for, I'm trying to remember what is the exact term. I don't know, I will find it again and I will post it in the chat. But you can request the LIR replacement, and you will need to follow a certain procedure which is described in one of those FAQs. So you can try LIR replacement. It's not the word that I'm looking for, but it's described in an FAQ for sure. And I think that you can find this information in the IT how-to as well. So if you want to be sure, you can go in the online manual and the IT how-to. Is it usual that partners are found through searching, or is it more common there are existing contacts? Would I be at a disadvantage just posting my expertise? So I don't know in practice. Both options are valid. They don't provide any specific advantage or disadvantage. It's just another way for people to find each other. So for consortia and for people and organizations to actually find a meeting point. So there's no, you will not have a bonus point for using our system. You will not be disadvantaged if you do so. It's just a different way of finding partners. If you know others, if you meet people in real life, that's just as fine, don't worry. Next question, where to find and post the financial support to third parties call opportunities? So indeed, there used to be in the past a page which was dedicated to the financial support to third parties, and this has been removed because now they are integrated into the funding opportunities. So if you go on funding and look for funding opportunities, you will see that they are actually detailed whether it's a call for proposals or whether it's a cascade funding call. So that's the term which is used on the funding and tenders portal. It's a different way of getting funding. For the people who don't know, it's when a project has been awarded a grant and part of that money can be reused to actually run a call within the framework of this project. So this is findable now on the main search for funding opportunities on the Funding and Tenders portal. Next question, is the next step after Funding and Tenders portal checking the Enterprise Europe network for research partners and consortia? Yeah, this can be something that can be done. We are not pretending that the Funding and Tenders portal is the alpha and the omega for everything EU funding. It's the main entry point for sure. You will need to start your submission there, but if you have different ways of finding information, finding partners, etc., it's completely fine. Can research advisors create a login, or is this mainly for researchers? So anyone can create an EU login account. It depends what you need to do on the Funding and Tenders portal. So what I showed was, for example, to find funding opportunities. Now, if you apply as an expert for the European Commission to evaluate some proposals, for example, you will also need an EU login account. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with creating your EU login account in case you don't know. Maybe you will just not use it as much, but you can create an EU login account for sure. Is there an option to filter by eligible applicant? Unfortunately, no. No, this is not something that exists. Can't elaborate on that, sorry. Can I merge two personal accounts that I have, one which was created in early employment and watch with... That's a good question. You would have to ask the help desk about that. I'm not sure whether you can merge them or whether you will have to switch between one and the other. This is a question that would be more for the help desk. I'm not sure about the reply. Next question, how do you give full access to a project you are applying to a third account in order for it to complete administrative data, for example? So again, this is a bit beyond the scope of this presentation, but the principle is that project roles are granted at the level of the project. So if you are a primary coordinator contact, you can grant further access to the project within your own organization. If you are a participant contact, you can grant further project access within your own organization for the project that you are in charge of. So in case you want to know more about the way roles are working, then I would advise you to go on the link that I have put at the bottom of the slide with the little diagram with all the little characters. This is where you will find the detailed information. To find details on a specific project, what are the differences between FNT EU-funded projects, Horizon Europe dashboard, Cordis, and so on? So the EU-funded project is just all the data that is there for all the projects, and then you can filter for the different programs, and so on and so forth. The Horizon Europe dashboard is something which is, of course, focusing on Horizon Europe only. So this is really about the research and innovation programs. There's more than Horizon Europe to the Funding and Tenders portal. So for example, the Erasmus Plus program is managed there, Creative Europe. Basically, if there's an EU program that is publishing calls for proposals, you will most likely find it on the Funding and Tenders portal. So Horizon Europe is one part of that. So everything which is under the Horizon Europe umbrella will be focused on Horizon Europe only. Cordis is the repository which is still used right now for the information about all the different projects. So I would say that here the label does not really matter, because the information that you will find there is official information which is coming from the Commission systems. So it does not really matter what is the entry point that you find, provided that you find information that you're actually looking for, because you will not find the same information in the Horizon Europe dashboard and the EU-funded projects. Does an associated partner need to obtain the LEAR validated? I think so, but this is something that will be dealt with in the next Horizon implementation day, because this is part of the grant agreement preparation and not just submitting a proposal. The next question, how can we replace LEAR? I have already addressed it. So the fund, yes, I have already addressed this one as well. Next question, when can we expect the next Coordinators Day? So the thing is that the Coordinators Day, as we used to organize them, have now been turned into the Horizon Implementation Days. The reason is that we can just we can talk about more topics because it's 3 half days instead of just 1 full day. So we can go more in depth with some of the parts. And there are still some parts of the Commission, some services which are organizing their own Coordinators Day. So, for example, if you are looking for different programs, or there are some units that publish some calls for proposals and that organize their own Coordinators Day. Usually, if you have an event, it can be advertised through the Funding and Tenders portal. So you go news and events, and you will see the events which are upcoming, and you will see that some information might be there. So some of the events that you might be looking for might be there. Which database to use to check the innovativeness of the concept? I have no idea, to be honest. I don't know what to reply to this question. Where you may find information if the PIC is declared or already validated. It's not available in participant register of the portal. It should be. If you are looking for a PIC number, you should see the status. So you should see what is the PIC number, what is the name of the organization, and what is the status. So it should be either declared or validated. It can be sleeping. The thing is that the status itself does not matter too much because, again, as I said, as long as you are not part of a successful evaluation, a simply declared PIC is enough. And the organizations that need to be validated because they are part of a successful proposal will be contacted. So the validation services have a tool that allows them to know what are the organizations that need to be validated. So people will be contacted if it's the case. Yeah, so that's, I still can't reply to that one, sorry. My organization specializes in communication and dissemination activities, so our role applies to many calls. What would be the best way to reach out to others? It depends what you want to do, I would say. I mean, I know that there are some companies that use the partner search to find some organizations, for example, in order to help them for this. Again, be careful, no commercial opportunities. So we are talking here about really partnerships and not offering a paying service, because that would be against the terms of use of the Funding and Tenders portal. So yeah, it's a bit too vague for me to reply more precisely to this one. Next question. In the portal, is it possible to have an archive section to archive our own ended projects? So if the project has ended, it's on the Funding and Tenders portal, so it should be there. If you were part of the project, if you had the project roles, you will still have access to the information. So it will appear as ended or finished. I don't know what is the exact wording, but it will still appear there. Next question. In the portal, how can I get rid of entries in my proposals, list of proposals that were rejected once? Seems like they stay there forever. I think so. I don't think that you can actually get rid of them. Again, that would be more a question for the help desk, but I'm afraid that they will stay there. The thing is that you can sort the different columns. So, for example, you can sort them that you only see the ones which are in draft mode, for example, and rejected will appear below. So they are a bit less in the way. But otherwise, I think that they will stay there. Next question. Can the coordinator and partner change roles during submission, or is it necessary to set up a new project? I think this is more a question for my colleagues. I'm not sure whether you can change during the submission or yeah, for the next presentation. Is there an option to add another researcher from the same organization as a partner? So this is a bit unclear to me, because you can add another person from your organization. You can grant that person a project role, for example, but we are talking about managing a project here. When you want to submit a proposal, yes, that person can also have a role in the proposal drafting, but what does adding another researcher, me as a partner, means? This I'm not sure. If you're talking about the person profile are really it's everyone's responsibility. So if you have your own personal profile, it's your responsibility, but you cannot do it for someone else. If the question was about this aspect, that person needs to go in the EU login account and publish the person profile. Next question, how do I add my expertise and field of research into my account? So I showed during the presentation, you need to log in first, and then on the left-hand side, you have my area and you have my person profile. And this is a place where you can actually add your expertise and field of research. You can add some keywords. You can find information about your current and past employments. If you have some publications to your name, you can add them as well. So just have a look there. You will see that it's very complete, and you can decide what you want to show to the outside world or not. Expert, I have this message on my page. Attention, this profile is flagged as a potential duplicate. How can I deal with it? That's again something that you can ask to the help desk, because this is not something that we will do. It has to be done on a case-by-case basis, and so you need to ask the help desk about this one. Under which institution should I register on the portal? My current employer or the future host institution where I would like to go for fellowship? That's an excellent question, and I have no idea. I'm more on the IT side of things, and this one I really just don't know. Maybe you can ask to the next presentation. Maybe my colleagues know the reply to this one, so that's what I would advise. Next question, what organization? Yeah, okay, so that's very similar. Again, I don't know about that one. How can I post an expertise request offer on a call as an organization, not as a person? Yes, so if you want to post an expertise, so a partner search announcement in the context of a specific topic, this is something for which you need to have an organization role. So you need to be either the self-registrant or the leader or the account administrator of the organization. If you have this role, you can post a partner search announcement on a topic page, but if you don't, then you need to ask the person who has this role to do it for you. If you think that you need to have this kind of access, then you can ask, for example, the leader to appoint you as account administrator, and you will be able to post this kind of partner search announcement yourself. But in the context of a specific topic, this is really limited to the self-registrant, the leader, and the account administrator. Can the contact person be changed in the future? So all the information, whether at proposal level or at the level of the organization, it can be changed. Now, it depends what we are talking about. So if we are talking about the organization, for example, this is something that will be changed in the participant register. When it's the contact person, the level of the proposal, then it's within the My Proposals. So here it depends a bit what you need to do. Generally speaking, it's possible. Sometimes it's automatic. Sometimes it requires intervention by the Commission, but it's possible. How can I add different email and relate it to my current account? Again, this is linked to a previous question. I think that you need to ask the help desk to actually merge two accounts into one. But this is not something that can be done automatically, at least not by you directly. Next question, how can readiness to start a proposal be defined in terms of having identified the necessary partners? This is something that I cannot reply for the simple reason that this will change between one funding opportunity to the other. So not all programs have the same requests, have the same eligibility conditions. So you will need to go into the individual funding opportunities and see whether your current consortium fits the bill. That's yeah, you will need to look yourself. Next question. If I would like to apply as an expert, do I do so also under my personal page? No. So you need, if you want to apply as an expert, you need to first have the EU login account. That's a step which is mandatory. And then you have a page which is work as an expert, and for which you will actually be able to fill in some information. There is some information which is an overlap with the person profile page, but you really need to focus on the work as an expert section. So yeah, you really need to go there and register. Next question. If a colleague or my boss registers the company I work at, do I have to create an EU login account as well in order to manage submissions or to contact others? Yes. So if your colleague or your boss registers the company, that person has an EU login account and will have the proper role to manage, I mean, depending on the role, of course. But if you need to take some actions, you need to have an EU login account and to be delegated the appropriate role. Next question. Every organization from the consortia must have a PIC number or just the coordinator? So every organization in consortium needs to have a PIC number, yes. The good news is that it's rather easy to do so. So you need to go into the participant register, as I showed during my presentation. And then if the organization is part of the successful evaluation, there will be the validation of the organization. Last two questions. I'm trying to add a partner to my project, but the participant register says it is suspended. What does that mean? So it means that indeed the PIC is not valid as it is. Now, why was it suspended? I don't know. I would advise you to contact the validation services to see whether there's anything you can do. But yes, if a PIC is suspended, it will not be possible to use it as such in a proposal. And the last one, is it possible to create profiles to all researchers in an institution together, or they must do it themselves individually? So again, when we are talking about the organization profile, you don't have to do anything. This is really the information which is taken from the system and displayed once you click on the name of the organization. When we are talking about individual person profiles, then every individual person needs to go into the system and create the person profile. So if you want to do this, there's no going around it. Every person needs to go and actually create the profile. So this was the last question. So thank you very much for your attention, for all the interesting questions. I hope that I replied as appropriately as I could. Now it will be time for the third presentation, which my colleague Alison IMRIE will give, well, actually right now. Alison, please.
Thank you very much. Yes. So this next session is the last one this morning, and together with my colleagues who will join me in a minute, we will take you through in more detail the process for submission and evaluation of proposals, including the rules of participation. So if I press the right button. Nope, I've just pressed the wrong button. Let's try again. Forward. It's not going forward. There we are, we have liftoff. Thank you very much to my colleagues. So first of all, I will give you some information in more detail to complement what Peter mentioned this morning earlier about the rules of participation in Horizon Europe. And then my colleagues will give you much more detail on the submission process and the evaluation process. So starting off with the rules for participation. In Horizon Europe, we distinguish between admissibility conditions and eligibility conditions, and there are the same general admissibility conditions across all of the calls in the program. Applications must be submitted before the relevant call deadline, and they must be submitted electronically via the Funding and Tenders portal. And you've now seen in a lot of detail how that works. The applications must be complete, readable, accessible, and printable for them to be admissible. And there's one other important aspect that makes an application admissible, which is that they must include a plan for the exploitation and dissemination of results, unless it's explicitly mentioned otherwise in the call conditions. But don't worry too much about whether and how to do that, because if you go through the submission process and use the application forms and complete all of the sections, you will have included automatically as part of that a plan for the exploitation and dissemination of results. It's also very important to know that we have different page limits for each kind of proposals. We distinguish by the different types of actions, and I will come to those a little bit later in this presentation. But for research and innovation actions and innovation actions, or known as RUIZ and EARS, the limit for a full application is 45 pages. For coordination and support actions, CSAs, the limit is 30 pages. For those proposals where we have a two-stage evaluation process, and again, we'll explain later exactly what that means, for the first stage proposal, the limit is only 10 pages. And for the European Innovation Council Pathfinder calls, the limit is 17 pages. However, I would stress that there are frequently exceptions to these page limits, and it's important to look at the call text to check if any exceptions have been outlined there. So that's admissibility. Let's look at eligibility. And for collaborative projects, which are mainly found in Pillar 2 of the programme and also the European Innovation Council Pathfinder calls, there are rules about the composition of the consortium. So the minimum consortium size for collaborative projects is a minimum of 3 independent legal entities established in 3 different countries, in either member states or associated countries. And of those, at least one needs to be established in a member state. Of course, a consortium can have far more members, but this is the minimum to be eligible for a collaborative project. Occasionally, there are other requirements, and these, if relevant, would be outlined in the specific topic conditions for the call. Another new eligibility condition that came in with Horizon Europe is the need to have a gender equality plan. This applies only to participants that are public bodies, research organizations, or higher education establishments based in member states or associated countries. And these types of participants must have a gender equality plan, and that plan must cover a minimum kind of process-related requirements. If you go through the proposal process and complete all the forms and the templates, you will be talked through this process, as it were, and there is a lot of additional information and guidance and advice on the Funding and Tenders portal about gender equality plans and how to set them up or to check that your organization has one that is compliant. At proposal stage, you will just need to make a self-declaration, and the existence of this self-declaration will be included in the entity validation process. If you are then successful and your project is funded, there will then be spot checks during the course of the grant to check that your organization does indeed have a gender equality plan. So now we need to look at who is actually eligible to participate in Horizon Europe. And the general eligibility rule is that any legal entity, regardless of its place of establishment, and that, as Peter said earlier this morning, includes legal entities from outside of the EU and third countries that are not associated to the programme, any of these legal entities are eligible to participate. It's important to distinguish, though, that not all of them are necessarily eligible to receive funding, and I'll come to that in a minute. However, there are specific call topics where the conditions may set out specific limitations to participate that go beyond this general eligibility rule. You'll see a couple of specific cases as examples on the slide here. First of all, the Joint Research Centre, the JRC, there is a new process compared to earlier framework programs for research and innovation. The JRC may participate in projects if provided for in the specific conditions of that call topic that you are proposing to. But applicants may include in their proposals the possible contribution of the JRC, but the JRC is not allowed to participate in the preparation and submission of the proposal itself. If the proposal is evaluated successfully and retained for funding, then the JRC may accede to the grant agreement as a beneficiary requesting zero funding, because we in the Commission would fund the JRC directly, or to participate as an associated partner and would then accede to the consortium as a member. So that's a change compared to earlier framework programs. Another important specific case is that legal entities established in China are not eligible to participate in Horizon Europe innovation actions, so this type of action called an innovation action, in any capacity. Exceptions may be granted on a justified case-by-case basis, but the general rule is there, and it's important to be aware of that. Then there may be a limited number of topics in calls where there are specific restrictions on the participation or control, and these generally relate to actions addressing EU strategic assets or interests, or EU autonomy or security. And there you will see it very clearly set out in the topic text and the call conditions. We also have cases sometimes where there are specific measures or sanctions. One example at the moment is that legal entities established in Russia, Belarus, or non-government controlled territories of Ukraine are currently not eligible to participate, with some exceptions on a justified case-by-case basis. And one of those examples is in the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions for individuals. Or there are EU budget protection measures that may restrict participation. So it's really important, it's rather small at the bottom of the slide here, to check the Horizon Europe programme guide before you start if you think that you may be considering the participation of members of a consortium where there may be problems, and for the main work programme in the general annexes to make sure that you have up-to-date information. So we've looked at who is eligible to participate, but as I already mentioned, not everyone who can participate is eligible to actually receive funding. So let's have a look at who can receive funding. First of all, legal entities based in the EU countries, in the member states, and that includes the outermost regions and the overseas countries and territories linked to the member states. Eligible for funding are also entities based in countries associated to Horizon Europe. As Peter mentioned earlier this morning, they are treated as member states from the funding point of view. And there is a list of low and middle income countries, a very long list, again in the Horizon Europe programme guide, and entities based in these countries are also automatically eligible for funding as part of a consortium. Other countries, and the leftovers are mainly the rich countries of the world, are not eligible for funding except when announced in the call, or very exceptionally if participation of entities from these countries is considered essential and is justified in the proposal. We also have some specific cases. Affiliated entities are eligible for funding if they are established in countries eligible for funding. EU bodies may be funded. International organizations, however, only international European research organizations are eligible for funding. Other international organizations are not eligible except if they're based in a member state or associated country for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie training and mobility actions, and that is then always announced in the call conditions if that's the case. So we've looked at who is eligible for funding and now what is eligible for funding. The important point is that eligible activities are the ones described in the topic and in the call conditions. It's really important that if you're interested in applying, that you read the topic text, that you read the call conditions, and that you apply for that particular activity. As you've already heard this morning, activities must focus exclusively on civil applications. And in addition, activities may not aim at human cloning for reproductive purposes. They may not intend to modify the genetic heritage of human beings, which could make such changes heritable. We have an exception there for research relating to cancer treatment of the gonads. And activities must not intend to create human embryos solely for the purpose of research or for the purpose of stem cell procurement, nor lead to the destruction of human embryos. So those are the areas and activities that we may not fund and therefore are not eligible if you make a proposal. So I've already mentioned several times that we have different types of actions and we categorize the activities eligible for funding according to these types of actions. In most of the calls, the most common types of actions you will see are the research and innovation actions, RIA, or innovation actions, IA. So research and innovation actions fund activities to establish new knowledge or to explore the feasibility of new or improved technology, products, processes, services, or solutions. You could consider that as the lower technology readiness level if you're thinking in terms of TRLs. The innovation action funds activities to produce plans and arrangements or designs for new, altered, or improved products, processes, or services, so it's closer to the market, closer to rollout. Then we have coordination and support actions, known as CSAs. These are activities that contribute to the objectives of Horizon Europe, and as the name says, they are there to coordinate and or support, but they exclude research and innovation activities. The only exception is in the widening participation and spreading excellence part of the work program and the calls relating there. I think Peter covered this morning the different partnerships, and program co-fund actions are intended for partnerships for funding a program of activities established or implemented by legal entities managing or funding research and innovation programs other than EU funding bodies. Then we have innovation and market deployment actions, which are found under the European Innovation Council calls, and these are activities that embed an innovation action with other activities necessary to deploy an innovation on the market. And then in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, MSCA, we have training and mobility actions, which are activities that aim to improve the skills, the knowledge, and career prospects of researchers based on mobility between countries and, if relevant, between sectors or disciplines. And then finally, we have two types of actions that were in previous programs as well: pre-commercial procurement actions and public procurement of innovative solutions actions. I think the name explains quite well what they do, but you will find them from time to time. And so finally, linked to these types of actions, you have the maximum funding rates that we will fund as part of a Horizon Europe grant. So for research and innovation actions, we fund up to 100%. For an innovation action, the funding rate is up to 70%, but in the case of non-profit legal entities, we will fund up to 100%. A coordination and support action also has a 100% funding rate, whereas the program co-fund actions are funded between 30% and 70%. Innovation and market deployment is a bit like the innovation action in the sense that we fund 70%, except for non-profit legal entities where we fund 100% of the eligible costs. Training and mobility actions and pre-commercial procurement actions are also funded up to 100% of the eligible costs, and public procurement of innovative solutions, 50%. So you will see that the closer to the market, the closer to implementation, the lower the funding rate, and the more fundamental and upstream the research, the higher one. I would just here again stress that it's important to check the specific call conditions for all of the topics or any of the topics that you're thinking of applying to, because if there are exceptions, the funding rates will be set out there. These on the slide are the maximum. And so that's all for my part now. I will pass over the floor and the clicker to my colleague Izabela.
Thank you very much, Alison. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Izabela PROKOPOWICZ, and I will guide you today through the submission process of proposals in Horizon Europe. I will quickly join the remote so we can move forward with our presentation. I will first explain a little bit about the application form. We saw there are some questions about how many application forms are available, where to find them. So we'll go more into detail here. Then we'll move on to the evaluation criteria that are, of course, key for you who are preparing a proposal for Horizon Europe. And last but not least, we'll go also through some horizontal aspects that have to be taken into consideration while preparing your proposal. So without further ado, we'll start with the application form template, the proposal template. And to start off is because also to see a little bit what was already in the questions, you prepare your proposal on a template that is provided by us. Depending on the type of action you're applying to, these templates may vary. You can find the standard templates on the Funding and Tenders portal, but here a very important caveat that I will stress throughout my whole presentation. This standard template that is published already now in the Funding and Tenders portal in the reference document section, this is only for information. So please don't use it to prepare your proposal. You'll find the exact template that you have to use in the submission system. So once you find the topic that you're interested in and you start your submission process, you'll be able to download the template. So please use only this. This will be in an editable format, so there will should be no problems with filling it out. But more about the structure of the form itself. So we have a part A and part B. The part A is a web-based form. What it means that you fill out screens in the IT system, in the submission system. And it is based also on the information that participants included in their application in the submission system. So this is part A. You don't have to download any document for this. You will be guided in the submission system to fill it out. What goes into part A? This will follow in the next slide. In part B, this is the narrative part. So this is really the part where you have to download the template, prepare your proposal, and re-upload it in a PDF version. Again, very important for us, please only use this version that is included in the submission system. There may be some little alterations that were very specific to the topic that you apply to. So it is absolutely key that you use only this version from the submission system. But of course, if you would like to have already a look, for your information, these templates are published under the reference document section in the application form part. So it's also very easy to find in the portal. When you click on the icon here on the slide, because the slides will be available for you to download, you'll be directly redirected to one of the standard application forms. So you can already have a look. So now to the content of the application form. So what goes into part A, as already mentioned, it's the web-based form. We start with general information on the proposal, title, acronym. One point here to highlight are the keywords. Please pay attention to choose keywords that really correspond to your proposal. we then use these keywords also in the selection of experts who will evaluate your proposal. So yeah, just here another highlight that is important for you while preparing your proposal. Then information about participants, so organization details. One kind of information here is that if you have a PIC, you can the participant identification code, you can enter it, and this will, through the PIC, information about the organization will be retrieved automatically from the participant registry. Some other information that you will have to fill out are contact persons, identity of researchers, role of the participant, and more information that you see on the slide. Then part A also includes the budget of the proposal. There are questions regarding specific ethics and security issues, and you'll be asked to, of course, to reply to them and to see whether these issues also can apply to your proposal. There can be some other questions will depend on the specific call. For example, if you apply to a two-stage call and you are already in the phase of preparing the second stage proposal, there could be an additional questions connected to this. For example, also clinical trials, etc. So this is very much specific to the call. And last but not least, there will be declarations that will be have to be confirmed by the project coordinator on behalf of the consortium. And what follows is then the application form part B. So the PDF part that you prepare on a template that you download for the submission system, as already mentioned, and you then upload it again as a PDF. One really important information here is to explain to you that the application form has a lot of information, a lot of guidance for you to prepare the proposal. So please have a look. It is really a vast amount of information there, and which really guides you step by step through the following questions and sections. So makes the preparation of your proposal hopefully a little bit easier. And as I said, the structure of the application form follows the evaluation criteria that we'll explain in the next slides. One more point that I believe was already mentioned are the page limits. So the actual application form part B is subject to page limits. Please always double check the topic text so you can see what exact page limit applies to your case. And those page limits are applied automatically. So what it means that should you submit a proposal that goes beyond the page limit, when I say proposal, I mean part B. When it goes beyond the page limit, those pages, those excess pages will be automatically made invisible. Before this, of course, if you have uploaded a part B that goes beyond the page limit, there will be an automatic warning and you'll be advised to shorten and re-upload your proposal. So you will be aware once you exceed the page limit. But please be also aware that if there's no changes and the part B will be longer than allowed, those extra pages will be made invisible. So this is another point to take into account. So this would be for the application form, and we would move now to the evaluation criteria, the award criteria, which of course of uttermost importance for you because this is how your proposal will be evaluated. The criteria, the standard evaluation criteria didn't change from the previous framework programs. So we'll have the excellence criterion, impact, and the quality and efficiency of the implementation. There can be some alterations depending on the part of Horizon Europe that you're applying to. So for example, here we have excellence only for the ERC, but there could be also some changes in the sub-criteria. So each of the criteria that the 3 evaluation criteria has sub-criteria, and there could be some changes depending on the type of action or whether you're applying to a different part of Horizon Europe. So what we also wanted to kind of show you a little bit what apart, because as I said, the criteria stayed the same, but there has been a lessons learned exercise to really improve the program, and in terms of the evaluation criteria and how we evaluate your proposals, the following changes had been done. So first of all, open science practices are now assessed as part of the excellence criterion under the scientific methodology. Instead, it was in the impact criterion. So this was a change. A second point is the new approach to evaluating impact. It's called the key impact pathways. In principle, it's not a new methodology. It's just we wanted to also, again, lessons learned, and we heard also the feedback to help applicants, but also experts, how to prepare a proposal and how to demonstrate the impact that they are expecting, and also how experts can then evaluate properly this proposal and the impact that it is planned to have. So this is on the key impact pathways. Another point is the assessment of the quality of applicants is now part of the implementation criterion. So quality and efficiency of the implementation includes now also quality of applicants rather than a separate assessment. And last but not least, the assessment of management structures has been removed. This was due to the fact that the proposal that included the description of the management structures, it was always very well done, or in most cases very well done. So therefore the assessment was not more needed, although this information is still included in the proposals that are submitted to Horizon Europe, but the assessment is removed. So this is a first insight on the evaluation criteria, and then we'll follow up with a real example of such evaluation criteria. Here we're using the research innovation actions and the innovation actions. This you can find if you follow the, you see the application form template. This is also very nicely included in there, so you'll always have a good overview of the evaluation criteria. So we would start with excellence. Here we focus on 2 points. It's first of all the clarity and pertinence of the project objectives, and the second one would be the proposed methodology. Here what we expect is the scientific methodology, and 3 other points that I would like to highlight is that you also should consider the gender dimension. Again, we will explain in the next slides what we actually mean by gender dimension in your research innovation content. Second point would be the open science practices. Peter already explained them in the previous presentation, but just to also to give you an example how it is then referred in the application form. So as you see, it's under the excellence criterion. And last but not least, the interdisciplinary approaches. These are collaborative actions, so this is also to be taken into account whether some interdisciplinary approaches could be used also in your proposed work. The second evaluation criteria is the impact criterion. First, we look at the credibility of the pathways to achieve the expected outcomes and impacts. What exactly these pathways are and how are they structured, we'll show in the next slide. And the second, also very important point, is the suitability and quality of the measures to maximize expected outcomes and impacts. This is the dissemination, exploitation, and communication plan. So what exactly, how this should be structured. Again, it's also included in the application form template, and we'll touch upon it later on. And last but not least is the quality and efficiency of the implementation. We look here at the work plan, and second of all, at the capacity and role of each participant and the consortium as a whole. Having said that, one very, very important caveat is that these aspects will be assessed to the extent that the proposed work is within the scope of the work program topic. This is a key information, especially, for example, Pillar 2, where we have a top-down approach. So the scope is very clearly defined in the work program, of course, also at the topic level. So please be aware to read it carefully and follow what exactly is expected, so you can prepare a proposal that very well fits to the to what is expected from the topic. And one more slide about it also ties in very nicely with the evaluation criteria, but really some key principles that should guide you throughout your proposal writing. You'll see they're connect very well with the evaluation criteria. So first of all, what I already said is that the proposed work must be within the scope of the work program topic. Second of all, you need to demonstrate that your idea is ambitious and goes beyond the state of the art. This is the excellence criterion. Your scientific methodology must take into account interdisciplinary, gender dimension, and open science practices. This is the second part of the excellence criterion. Then you should show how your project could contribute to the outcomes and impacts described in the work program. So the pathway to impact under the impact criterion. You should describe the planned measures to maximize the impact of your project, plan for dissemination, exploitation, including combination activities. So this is also a key principle to keep in mind. And last but not least, you should demonstrate the quality of your work plan, resources, and participants. So with these key principles, we really wanted to kind of summarize some areas that have to be taken into account, considered while preparing the proposal. And having said that, we will also see that some of the impact criterion, they include also policy and horizontal considerations. So these are aspects that are not connected, they do not refer to a specific research area, but these aspects must normally be considered in all Horizon Europe calls. Of course, there can be some exceptions if it's explicitly mentioned in the topic description, but the general rule is that you have to prepare a proposal which also consider these aspects. Here you see some that I already mentioned. You see artificial intelligence as a new one, but you can have also other policy considerations, horizontal considerations to be taken into account specific to your topic. So again, please be careful when reading the topic description, because there you'll find the information, what you should take into account. So yeah, I will then move to explain you a little bit more what exactly is mentioned by each of them. And we'll start off with the open science across the program. So this is really, my apologies. This was already mentioned by Peter. The open science, what we mean by open science is an approach based on open cooperative work and systematic sharing of knowledge and tool as early, as widely as possible in the process, and includes active engagement of society. So it's an approach that encompasses not only the sharing, but also, for example, the active engagement of society. And so there are some requirements that are mandatory. For example, if you have a publication, it has to be published in a resource which will be open access. Of course, it's necessary to retain certain IPR rights, so intellectual property rights, to comply with the open access requirements. Okay, but this is a mandatory requirement to publish it in open access. And the second point is the data sharing, where we follow the principle for as open as possible, as cloud is necessary. So the data that you produce within your project has to be also findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. So we follow here the FAIR principle. So this is really two key mandatory requirements for you, which you also will need to describe in your application. Again, the application template will have more information to guide you and to help you take this into account. The assessment of open science is done, as already mentioned, through the Excellence Award criteria. However, under the quality of participants, so when we have the quality of implementation criterion, previous experience in open science practices will be also evaluated positively. And one more thing to mention is that if you would publish your publications on the Open Research Europe publishing platform, this is a platform, or publishing on that platform makes sure that you adhere to the open access requirements. So this is an important point for you also to keep in mind while preparing the proposal. The next point will be about the gender dimension in RI content. Here, it's not about having a gender balance within your project. It's about taking into account the gender dimension in research and innovation work. So it's throughout the whole process. It is mandatory to take it into account. This is also in the application template. You'll see it is mandatory, unless, of course, it's explicitly mentioned in the topic description that it's not. And to give you a little bit more, a better understanding, what could be such gender dimension be, we included some examples on the slide, which I hope will be helpful for you. For example, if you prepare work, your research is about the COVID-19 pandemic, taking into account the gender dimension would be to reply also to the question, why do we observe differences between women and men in infection levels and mortality rates in the COVID-19 pandemic? Or, for example, if you are working on car safety equipment, this is another example that we included, your research should also try to reply to the question, does it make sense to design car safety equipment only on the basis of male body standards? So these kind of things is what we mean by the gender dimension. If there is any further questions, I really also advise you to check the program guide that was already mentioned by Alison before. It's really a source of a lot of information, which can bring also a lot of clarity for you while you're preparing your proposal. So all these resources, they are available in on the Funding and Tenders portal. In the reference document section, there is a specific section on guidance. So please have a look. And we hope it can be helpful for you in your proposal writing. On the next slide, we move to the next evaluation criteria, which is the impact and the project pathway towards impact. So this is a methodology that was introduced to, again, both support applicants while preparing their proposal, so they know what they should, they know how they should describe the impact and the outcome of the project, but also for experts, for them to have more clarity why evaluating the proposal. So you'll see on the slide that we have both the expected outcomes and the expected impact. And this structure is also available in your proposal template. So the proposal template will guide you also where to put certain information. What I would like to highlight here is first of all, the expected outcomes and the expected impact. You will need to describe, to include it in your proposal, how your project results will contribute to the expected outcome, which is a outcome in a midterm. So it happens already during the project or right after the project. These outcomes are already visible, and you your expected outcome in the topic description. So read carefully what is there expected from you, what is the expected outcome that the project funded under the given topic should have, and then you can explain in the proposal, in your application form, how your project results will contribute to the expected outcome. This is not the end. We have also the expected impact. The expected impact, you can find it in the work program, and it's then defined as the destination. So the expected outcomes should contribute to the destinations, the expected impact. But for you, while you're preparing your proposal, you can check in the work program what is the destination, see how your results can fit in through. So first through the expected outcome, and how then this can fit into the expected impact. With this structure, really what the idea was to have it, a more structured way to describe the impact that your project can have. And you see also in the middle the dissemination exploitation work actions. This is also a key point here, that not only to think about how you'll contribute to the expected outcome and the impact, but also what will be the measures that will help you really achieve the outcome and the impact. So this is really kind of a way to visualize it to you. But again, in the application form template, there will be separate boxes which you can fill out, and it is clear then what goes into which one. So this is on the impact. And also for you, a little bit of background information, how these expected outcomes, the topics, the destinations, how it comes to life. So we start at a very high level of EU policy priorities, going a step down, the key strategic orientations, then the impact areas are defined, and then we start already in the work program with the expected impacts, divided in destinations. And these the expected impacts you can understand as a wider long-term effects on society, on science, on economy. So this is a more high-level term, and then a step below is the expected outcomes. So this is really topic-specific, also described in the work program. And for you, while you're preparing your proposal, for you it will be the other, from the bottom to the top. So you start with the project results and then see how they contribute to the expected outcomes, further to the expected impact to the destinations. So this is a little bit more of background information for you. And as already said, the measures to maximize impact is also part of the, also evaluated as part of the impact criterion. All measures that you propose should be proportionate to the scale of the project and should contain concrete actions to be implemented both during and after the end of the project. So we have also pointed out the elements of such dissemination, communication, and exploitation plan. So again, the planned measures, the target groups, and proposed channels, how you would like to address your target groups, communication measures, and also if case you would like to have some measures that could give feedback back to policy making. This is also what you include there. And in case you would like to also exploit your project results, there's no obligation for this, but if yes, then you should also include a feasible strategy for the management of intellectual property. So this is on a very broad level. This would go to the dissemination, exploitation, communication plan. Again, more detailed, kind of step-by-step information is also in the application form template. And another point, which is we haven't mentioned it before, But another horizontal aspect to be taken into account is the do not significant harm principle. It is in line with the European Green Deal objectives that economic activities should not make significant harm to any of the 6 environmental objectives, which is also included in the EU taxonomy regulation. And the 6 environmental objectives would be the climate change mitigation, sustainable use and protection of water and marine resources, pollution prevention and control, climate change adaptation, transition to a circular economy, and protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystem. So applicants can refer to the do not significant harm principle in their proposal. This will be also part of the excellence criterion. They can show that the project will not carry out activities that make significant harm to any of the 6 environmental objectives. But the caveat is here that the evaluators will not score applications in relation to their compliance with the principle. So, of course, there can be exceptions, and it can be explicitly stated in the work program. So, please have this also in mind. But the general rule is that they will not score the applications in relation to this. Currently, there's the case for the actions within the European Innovation Council. So, as it is a part of the program that is closer to the market. So, yeah, this is also for your information. And we move to the last point for my presentation is the artificial intelligence aspect. And here it's key for us also to distinguish certain parts of this aspect, if I can say so. So first of all, you have artificial intelligence as in a technology that we will use as a tool in your project, and then AI that you will develop throughout your project. So you will be developing AI technology, and then also AI as help in proposal writing. So we leave the last point that I just mentioned for the next slide. And here we just focus on the use of artificial intelligence in your project itself, or development of the AI technology in your project. So what is here, and this is also part of the excellence criterion, that you have to demonstrate the technical robustness of the proposed AI-based system, and what it means. Well, so again, you have on the bottom part of the slide, you'll see what exactly is meant by this technical robustness. So, we have, technical robust, accurate and reproducible, socially robust, reliable, and functions intended, and suitable explanation of its decision-making process. The idea here is behind why do we ask for this information is to have this due diligence is required for the trustworthiness of the AI-based system and techniques. So this is kind of the background idea. We know also that it can be difficult to do it because, for certain reasons, but we are aware of this. This is kind of the amount of guidance that we could include. We have done it. So this is the most we could do. If if you are already applying to a topic, or you have a very specific topic that is of interest for you, and you have some questions regarding to artificial intelligence, please check the topic page on the Funding and Tenders portal. There you will find some resources how to contact or how to look for further guidance on this. But regarding the artificial intelligence in the application form, this is what you find there, and we hope you'll be able to use it in your proposal writing. And last but not least, this is the second part I mentioned, is the use of generative AI tools in the preparation of the proposals itself. So you will see it this is a disclaimer that is coming straight from the application form template. We have included it quite recently. It's already been a couple months, but if you haven't seen it yet, you can probably have a look. The background information here was not to include any new rules, but we really wanted to explain clearly what are the rules when it comes to use of generative AI tools, and also to provide you more clarity and transparency how this is then seen when you use generative AI tools. If you do it, you should be, of course, very careful. And the key principle here is that applicants are fully responsible for the content of the proposal. So even those parts that are produced by the AI tool, you have to be transparent and disclose what tools you use. So this is one very important principle, but of course, another would be verify the accuracy, validity, and appropriateness of the content that you use. Provide a list of sources used to generate content and citations, be conscious of the potential of plagiarism, and of course acknowledge the limitations of the AI tool in the proposal preparation. So you will see also in the bottom part, we included also the link to the guidelines on the responsible use of generative AI that was prepared by the EDA forum. So you can have a look at this as well. But we ask you very much for your caution and for your consideration, careful consideration, in case if you would decide to use these tools. And this will be from my side all. Thank you very much, and I will move or give the floor to my colleague Miguel. Thank you.
Thank you, Izabela. Hello, I am Miguel Ruiz, and I will give you an overview and more information about the evaluation process. First thing is the time frame of the grant. You should know that the clock starts to count when the call deadline, and then there will be a time to inform of 5 months maximum, and a complete 8 months time for to grant, for the grant preparation. So 5 months for informing and 8 to sign the grant. I will also talk to you about the different types of calls and the evaluation modalities, just to give you an overview of the different types that we have. First is the standard call or single stage calls, where a single submission of a full proposal is submitted. And then there is an evaluation of the full proposal against 3 evaluation criteria, which these criteria can change, but they have been already mentioned before by Izabela. Then we have also 2 stage calls, where there is a submission of a short proposal with the evaluation of excellence and impact. And then there will be a submission of the full proposal for those proposals that passed the threshold in the first stage. And then it will be followed by the full evaluation of the 3 evaluation criteria. There are also types of calls which are multi-step, where a single submission of a full proposal is organized, and then the evaluation is carried out in steps. For example, you could have a step 1 where you evaluate the proposals against excellence, and only about threshold on this criteria pass to the next step. And then the proposals rejected at this step receive feedback only on the criteria evaluated, criteria 1. And then in the second step, the evaluation of impact and quality of implementation will happen. Other examples is when the evaluation includes hearings or interviews. We have also calls with multiple cutoff dates. These are calls which are continuously open. For example, the Horizon EIC accelerator calls, where there is a final closure date and several intermediate cutoff dates that trigger evaluation. Okay, and there are also something that you have to keep in mind is that we have guiding principles for the evaluations, and these principles are in this slide, and I start with excellence. Of course, excellence proposals must demonstrate a high quality in relation to the topics and criteria set out in the calls. Transparency is also very important guiding principle, because the funding decisions must be based on a clearly described rules and procedures, and at any time applicants should receive adequate feedback on the outcome of the evaluation. So we have excellence and transparency. We have also fairness and impartiality, where all proposals which are submitted must be treated equally and evaluated impartially on their merits, irrespective of their origin or the identity of the applicants. Also, we try to be efficient. We have tried to keep efficiency and speed on the evaluation, on the award, and the grant preparation should be done as quickly as possible without compromising quality or neglecting the rules. We also follow ethics and security. The Commission and agencies must ensure that the research and innovation activities will be carried out in compliance with fundamental ethical principles and the applicable rules on ethics and security. Then we have confidentiality. Of course, this is an important aspect also, because all proposals must be treated confidentiality. And in fact, experts are bound by an obligation of confidentiality, which is present in the contract that they sign when they become experts. And finally, we have data protection, where of course the personal data must be processed under the EU data protection regulation. But how is the evaluation process in Horizon Europe? Okay. First, proposals in Horizon Europe are evaluated by independent external experts against clear criteria that are set out in the work program. Some exceptions apply, for example, for EIC missions and collaborative support actions, and the call for expression of interest by experts is continuously open on the Funding and Tenders portal. I will show in my last slide how to become an expert, how to apply to become an expert. In Horizon, we have a minimum of 3 experts which will evaluate each proposal, and oftenly we call for more than 3 experts, in fact. Individual experts agree on a common opinion, which is the basis of the feedback that the participant will receive. There is a panel of evaluators in a topic the panel of evaluators in a topic agree on the ranking of the proposals, and then the budget available for the topic will be the basis to decide whether the proposal is either retained for funding and invited to start grant agreement preparation, either is included into the reserve list, or is rejected because there is a low funding available, or finally is rejected because there is a low quality in the proposal. So these are the 4 categories of a proposal that can get. Observers. In Horizon Europe, we have observers included into the evaluation process, with a few exceptions. If necessary, suggest possible corrections that could be put into practice immediately or for future evaluations. The standard evaluation process follows these steps, starting in the left with the individual evaluation, when experts assess the proposals individually. They will do this work individually, and where, as I mentioned, with a minimum of 3 experts per proposal, but often there are more than 3. Once we have these individual evaluation reports, we move to the consensus group, where the experts will discuss all together to agree on a common position. They will include comments and scores for each proposal. Then we will have the panel review. It's a panel of experts where they will have to reach to an agreement on the scores, comments for the proposals within the call, and check also the consistency across the evaluation. If necessary, they will resolve cases where evaluators were unable to agree, or they will rank the proposals with the same score. Finally, the finalization step is where the Commission agency reviews and the results of the experts' evaluation and puts together a final ranking list. There is, of course, certain procedures to follow when we have proposals with identical scores, in particular for those around the budget threshold. The panel of experts will agree on a ranking following the criteria announced in the work program. First, the proposals that address aspects of the call that have not otherwise been covered by more highly ranked proposals will be considered to have the highest priority. Also, the proposals identified under number 1, if any, will be prioritized according to the scores they have been awarded for excellence. And when these scores are equal, priority would be based on scores for impact. In the case of innovation actions, in the contrast, the priority is given to the score for impact, followed by the excellence. If necessary, the gender balance among the personnel named in the proposal that will be the primarily responsible for carrying out the research and innovation activities and who are included in the research table in the proposal will be used as a factor for prioritization. Finally, if necessary, if any further prioritization will be based on geographical diversity, which is defined as the number of member states or associated countries represented in the proposal, not otherwise receiving funds from projects higher up the ranking list. And finally, if a distinction still cannot be made, the panel may decide to further prioritize by considering other factors related to the objectives of the call or to the Horizon Europe in general. This may include, for example, enhancing the quality of the project portfolio through synergies between projects or, where relevant and feasible, involving SMEs. Ethics review. For all the activities which are funded, ethics is an integral part of research from beginning to the end. And this was decided for Horizon Europe, and ethical compliance is essential to achieve real research excellence. An ethics review process is carried out systematically for all Horizon Europe proposals based on a self-assessment which is included in the proposal. The ethical research conduct implies the application of fundamental ethical principles and legislation in all possible domains of research. This includes the adherence to the highest standards of research integrity, which are described in the European Code of Conduct for Research and Integrity. Also, there is a scrutiny on security. This is something which is new in Horizon Europe, because originally security issues, now they are systematically checked in Horizon Europe, but before in Horizon 2020, only the proposals which were topic flagged as a security sensitive were checked. So now the checks are based on a self-assessment included in the proposal, which focus on whether the proposal uses or generates EU classified information. It's also the potential misuse of the results that could be channeled into crime or terrorism, and also whether activities involve information or materials subject to national security restriction. The checks based on this self-assessment may trigger an in-depth security scrutiny. Feedbacks to applicants. As I mentioned before, the time to inform is within 5 months after the call deadline, and applicants will receive an evaluation result letter and also an evaluation summary report. And the outcome of the evaluation can be retained for funding, or reserve list, or rejected because there is no sufficient budget in the call, or rejected because of the low quality. In a 2-stage calls, the applicants are informed about the results of the evaluation, but not the evaluation summary report is sent for the successful stage 1 proposals. Instead, we publish generalized feedback as a call update in the portal, and the evaluation summary report from stage 1 is sent together with a report for the stage 2. Yes, evaluation, review, or redress complaint. So the coordinator of the proposal may request an evaluation review, which will have to be done within 30 days after the communication of the evaluation results, if he considers that the applicable evaluation procedure has not been correctly applied to his proposal. So the redress refers to complaints about the evaluation procedure. The request must be done via the funding and tender portal. And please note that once this redress request is submitted, the redress case cannot be edited. Don't be confused, because with proposals, the tool allows you to edit the proposal until the call deadline, but with redress is a different procedure. Once you submit a redress case, it cannot be edited anymore. Be aware of that, please. And of course, please be aware that only the procedural aspects of the evaluation which are subject or request for an evaluation review. So the evaluation of the merits of a proposal shall not be the subject of an evaluation review. And the outcome of the evaluation review can be inadmissible. For example, if the request submitted out of time, unfounded, if there is no sufficient evidence to support the complaint, so the procedure was correct and the results of the evaluation are confirmed. It could be that there is no influence on the outcome because there is no influence on the outcome because the evidence to support the complaint, but no re-evaluation because the shortcomings is limited to a certain part of the evaluation and it didn't influence the overall outcome. And also the fourth scenario could be founded where the re-evaluation is approved because procedural errors are indeed proved or factual errors. And this is my last slide. This is what I mentioned before. If you want to register as an expert, you can always go to this link in the funding and tell the tenders and portal and apply. It's always a good way to learn also by doing. And with this, I finalize my presentation and thank you.
So thank you very much, and thank you everybody as well for your attention. And I see that there are also several questions, so we will try to deal with them now in the remaining time. So I see the first one is asking how important is it for the evaluation to demonstrate, that the project has integrated social sciences and humanities in an SSH flagged topic. I don't know. Yes?
It combines with what I said already in the presentation, that there are some horizontal and policy aspects or considerations that we didn't mention in our presentation. Social sciences and humanities is one of them. And then the general rule be, if it is a SSH flagged topic, you have to take it into consideration while preparing your proposal. So it is, as it is part of it, and it will be assessed also taking this into account. I would say yes, it is important to include it in your proposal if it is flagged as a SSH topic. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the next question also, is there any standard format for writing this grant? I expect the question was posed before your part of the presentation. I don't know whether you want to go into more detail now.
Indeed, what I already mentioned is that we have a set template for preparing the part B of your proposal. So this is the standard format. If this is what you meant by the standard format, then yes, there is a template. For the part B, we have also the part A, which is a web form. So it is not that you can prepare a proposal in your own way. No, you have to follow the structure that we provide, given the part A in a web form and the part B in a template that you should download from the submission system. So please, again, don't use the version that is only for information in the funding and tenders portal. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question is, how about Hungary's participation in Horizon Europe? And yes, I guess you've heard about the EU budget protection measures, where we have said that no legal commitments can be entered into with Hungarian public interest trusts established under the Hungarian Act 9 of 2021 or any entity that they maintain. So that's very specific wording and doesn't exclude many Hungarian potential participants. And so I suggest that you read up on the funding and tenders portal in the program guide. And if you're still unsure about a specific case, I think this is a very good case where if you send off a message to the Research Inquiries Service, you will get a very specific written response that will answer your question. Thank you. So the next question is for the ERC, so the European Research Council evaluation. You state that it is based on excellence only. Do you mean that the principal investigator's profile has no weight?
I take it, although indeed I am no expert on the ERC, but here what I believe is that as the principal investigator, and it's a key role in these projects, and it is basic research. So I wouldn't I don't think it is what it meant by this is that the profile has no weight, but this is really part of the excellence criterion. It will be evaluated because since the principal investigator is such an important role in the proposal. But here also, if you have very specific questions for the ERC, again, if you contact the Research Inquiry Service, they can channel it to the colleagues with much more detailed knowledge than myself. So I think they could confirm you then what is really the understanding. But yeah, for my side, it would be like this, that the profile still is very important. So.
Thank you. And I think the next question will be for you as well, I'm afraid. Should the use of AI to improve the writing quality, so grammar and vocab, but not the content in itself, should this be justified?
Actually, I think it will be even Miguel.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
No
problem.
I can reply to this question. When we approach the use of AI for the preparation of proposals, we apply the approach that there has to be transparency. You have to declare if you are using a tool, which tool, and in which way you are using this tool. Of course, it applies also to the improve of the writing quality. I think it will benefit everybody to have transparency about the use of this tool, not only for the content, but to improve the quality. So yes, the answer is yes. It's not to justify, it's to clarify that you have been using this tool during the preparation of the proposal.
Thank you. So the next question is, could you give an example of an expected outcome and an expected income, I think probably impact is meant, for a result from social sciences and humanities? Shall I start and you continue, or vice versa?
You can start, yeah.
So the expected outcome is usually set out in the topic text itself, and it's something that hopefully your project will work towards. So in the case of social sciences and humanities, it could be the assessing the economic impact of something, and then seeing how that would be implemented by a policymaker. And the expected impact would be when that policymaker then implements the policy and therefore has a change in society. I don't know if you have a more specific example that I was inventing as I went along.
I think inventing it's on the spot is quite difficult, but maybe here really to refer also to a work program and to see an example of a topic where you could see, again, in a specific topic text, you will find a section which is really called expected outcome and describes what is required for you there, and then you see also the destination, and there you can also have a little bit more comparison. I think coming up with a good example on the spot it's always a little bit more difficult, but thank you for the question.
Thank you, yes. And I think it's always much clearer, some of this terminology, when you take a specific topic, even if it's not one that you will ultimately apply for, and you look at it and you drill down and you look at the different sections of the information, and suddenly all this jargon and terminology starts making sense in a concrete situation. So here I see the question, what does civil applications in Horizon Europe terminology mean? I mean, you could turn it the other way around and says it means it's not for defence. It's not for defence in that sense. I'm sure somewhere that it's written in a nice long paragraph for you, but that's the short version. So with an innovation action, is it possible to have different funding rates for different partners, non-profit and profit organisations mixed in a consortium? Yes. The short answer, yes. As you've said in brackets, depending on the type of participant in the consortium, they will receive a different amount of funding of the eligible costs. Next question. Do we always need to have gender dimension aspect in all research proposals? For example, fundamental physics research. I think the rule is?
The general rule is that yes, it applies to all projects, all proposals, unless, of course, it's explicitly stated in the work program, in the topic text, that it's not required from you. So this would be the general approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's possible that a topic with fundamental physics research may well say that it's not necessary, but it really has to be specified in the topic. So how is social impact evaluated for fields that are not applications research, like fundamental physics?
Maybe for me it's a little bit to understand the question, because it's not necessarily that there has to be a social impact. Of course, I mentioned the impact on society, economy, and science, but these were examples. It's not that every impact, every expected impact will cover all three parts. So there indeed you don't need. There's not necessarily always a social impact to be expected. I don't know if Alison...
No, I was going to say exactly the same thing. The expected impact will be set out in the work program that the call is then linked to. You will find it when you are looking on the portal. It immediately appears related to that topic and the expected outcome as well. And if the topic is about something to do with fundamental physics, to take the example here, then it's highly unlikely that social impact would be required. But again, it's always more helpful to look at the specific topic example to see. So the next question is, if the host institution for Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, MSCA, postdoctoral fellowship can hire me before submission of the application, how long can I be hired there before applying to MSCA? This strikes me as a very specific question, and I think we may have to say, unless my colleagues immediately know, in that case we will have to admit ignorance of this precise detail. If you go into any of the MSCA calls for postdoctoral fellowships, when you click through, you will already see all the detailed called conditions for that call. With the MSCA have a special extra long annexes setting out all of the different rules. And if you still can't find the answer to your question, this is a very specific one, then I think, again, this is a case for the research inquiry services, where if you explain the situation, they will give you a concrete reply. So sorry, we can't reply to that directly now. Next question. We are an organization that does not have a research or academic profile. Is it more beneficial if we apply through the university, for example? Well, maybe I'll start and then one of you can continue. I would say that every organization normally applies on their own behalf. If you are a business, a company, a consultant, a small and medium-sized enterprise, and not related to research or academia, that's not a problem. And it shouldn't make a difference if you are contributing to the project in a way that is justified in the proposal and is in line with what is required. I'm not sure I understand the point about how you could apply through the university. I don't know if my colleagues have anything to complement on that.
No, I was even more thinking about the more beneficial part of the questions. I believe there's not any benefit in towards any type of organization. So these are there are different participants in Horizon Europe, and you just apply as your organization as you are. So I think there's no difference between more or less beneficial given the type of organization that you are. So yeah.
Thank you. Next question. Can evaluators use artificial intelligence for the evaluation? Miguel, tell us.
Yeah, it's an expected question because it's a fair question. The correct answer is it is allowed, but the limitations are so strong that it's very difficult to use these tools. In principle, an expert who wants to use a tool to evaluate a tool, he has to be aware of the limitations and of the risks, because an expert has signed a contract of confidentiality, and when you use a generative AI tool, you are at risk of breaking this contract. You are at risk. So only in the scenario that you have total control on the tool and how the information is going to be collected, only if you are sure that the information is not going to leak, you could use, and not as a replacement, but as a tool. So I have to say that when we recruit experts, we have to brief them, and we brief them specifically about the use of AI. You can find more information in the Funding and Tender portal, in the briefing to slides, in the slides briefing to experts. So in principle, it's very risky and tricky to use these tools for evaluation. It's not plainly forbidden. You have to fulfill certain conditions which are very difficult to complain. I have to be honest. That's it.
Thank you. So the next question, in an SSH flagged call in other clusters from cluster 2, is there a provision that an expert in the field of SSH is included in the review? So just for those of you who may be listening who don't understand the abbreviations, in a call that has been or a call topic that has been highlighted as where social sciences and humanities is important, and this applies to areas of the work program on Pillar 2 beyond Cluster 2, which has a strong social science and humanities element, is there a provision that one of the expert evaluators should have experience from social sciences and humanities?
I can maybe start with Miguel on the experts. A very general comment on it, and this is also what I mentioned, is about the keywords that you use for your proposal. This is also if there is an SSH flagged call. So so when we choose the experts, this kind of information has to be taken into account. So whether are the keywords or other aspects to be taken into consideration for a particular topic, where the exact provision would be, this I wouldn't be able to reply. But of course, if this is an SSH flagged call and you prepare a proposal taking this into account, we also make sure that this will be properly taken also into consideration on our side, on the expert side. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say the similar thing. I couldn't give you a chapter and verse for where it is, but the general rule is yes, especially for SSH flag topics, we make sure that there is expertise with the evaluators. So the next question, where in a proposal should we describe how AI was used in its preparation?
You know?
No.
Okay, it's in the excellence part. So if you open the application form template, you'll find also a section on artificial intelligence, and you write it there.
So next question, what are the submission deadlines? So the call deadlines vary according to each call for proposals, and these are published on the Funding and Tenders portal. And as Olivier showed you earlier this morning, you can search on the Funding and Tenders portal according to calls that are open or that have already closed. So if you search, or upcoming ones that haven't even opened yet, and then you can usually sort by the closing date, but you immediately will see, if you find a topic that you're interested in, what the submission deadline is, i.e. the closing date of the call. And also, the work programs are generally published once a year, and so some of the calls immediately open, but you can look in those documents, which you can see on the Funding and Tenders portal under reference documents, and you can see for the whole coming year, not only the opening date, but also the submission deadlines. And you can usually see if it's a multi-annual work program for the subsequent year as well, so you really get a chance to plan ahead. So the next question, ERC, European Research Council grant funds 100% plus 25%. Maximum financing is 1.5 million euros. Does this already include indirect costs or is it extra? That's another very specific question for the ERC. I think we're not the right people to be able to answer that question for you. I think the first suggestion would be that you go on the portal and look at the detailed information provided for the specific ERC grant that you're interested in for the call. And again, if it's really not clear, despite looking at the FAQs there, going to the Research Inquiry Service. Usually the response is relatively fast. If we must declare the use of, I think that's AI, to improve the writing of a proposal, do we have to declare the support of a project development firm for the writing? So AI is one thing, but what about someone else helping me to write my proposal, Miguel?
Yeah, again, it's a fair comment. Our approach with the use of generative AI has been to, at the moment, ask for transparency on the use. Of course, this is not necessary for a firm helping with the writing. But you have to understand that AI is a very hot topic now. It's evolving quickly. So our approach right now is to use it with transparency. Let's see what will happen in 6 months or in 1 year. You know, this is a very fast evolving environment. But no, only the use of generative AI for the moment is required to be informed. So everybody is informed and we play with transparency, following the same rules.
Thank you. So the next question, how does the GDPR factor into the open science dimension in relation to personal and sensitive data? So about data protection, how does the General Data Protection Regulation factor into open science?
We follow the principle of as open as possible, as closed as necessary. So, of course, we require open data sharing, so data sharing in open access, but this has to keep in mind, to take into consideration GDPR or other IPR provisions. So I think then keeping this principle as open as possible, as close as necessary. This as necessary is, for example, the GDPR component. So of course this has kind of priority and has to be taken into account. And then this requirement for data sharing in open access is somewhat limited by the GDPR, but this is, of course, we take it into account and we know about it.
Thank you very much. Next question. Are there some criteria to be able to register as an expert, or could anyone register? Either of you want to answer?
So, of course, we have the database that we already mentioned, the open call to express interest to become an expert. You will have to prepare your profile. Of course, the more your experience, where did you work, what kind of also experience, your professional experience, this has to be all included. If there are certain, I don't believe there are certain criteria that would really explain that someone cannot apply. But this is again to be checked on the funding tenders portal. That you have a section called "Work as an Expert," and a lot of details are explained there. Again, not like my expertise working with the experts, but I hope the funding tenders portal can help. The FAQs. This is another point which is really helpful. Also, if there's there's a lot of happening on the funding tenders portal, it can be overwhelming. So I think the FAQs are a good place to start to find very targeted information. And so please have a look, and we hope it can be helpful for you.
Thank you. So we still have questions. How to register on the portal, under which organization, if the researcher is unemployed at the moment of application? I'm not sure if this question is about registering as an expert, in which case you can just register as an expert because you still have your expertise even if you're not currently in employment. If it's about participating as a member of a consortium, you wouldn't register, or I don't know if it's relating back to one of Olivier's points about registering as an individual, but everybody can have an EU login to be able to register on the portal. So I think if this is a specific case that Mr. or Ms. Anonymous has posted here, I would suggest that you try to go through the process, and if you then hit a problem, contact either the IT help desk if it's a technical problem, or the Research Inquiries Service if it's related to a proposal. So the next question, can a PI, a principal investigator of a consortium member, move the RIA call grant with them to another organization? Are these grants transferable if a PI wants to change the place? Well, I understand this question is talking about a RIA grant, so a research and innovation action, which is a collaborative project, which is granted to organizations primarily and not to individuals. So my answer to this, I haven't come across this in practice, but my answer would be no, because the grant is granted to an organization and not to individual people. Of course, if you were talking about the European Research Council, which are obviously not from the way it's formulated, that would be different. I don't know if colleagues want to add something to that.
This, for me, it would be more even whether a new partner would join, another organization would join the consortium. So we are really always on the level of the consortium and not individual researchers that are carrying out the work. So if you prepare the proposal, you have the consortium members as organizations and not individuals. So yes, I wouldn't be. Again, also from my side, I haven't came across this question before, and I would rather say to. That I don't think it would be that possible, but very also specific case, and maybe to check with the Research Inquiry Service.
Thank you. The next question is, can open access obligations also be met by publishing the final manuscript in, for example, ResearchGate, if the conference doesn't have open access options? This is another very specific one.
I'm afraid the thing is with the open access, of course, is the requirement that when you're publishing it, it has to be published in open access. As long as you fulfill the requirements for open access, I believe it should be fine. But again, more of a specific question. Especially, the conference might have not open access options. This is, I think, very much the case. So, I would, to have the kind of the full clarity, please have a look on the FAQs, because there are a lot of, we have prepared already, or the team actually that works on open access prepared the FAQs, and if not, again, the Research Inquiry Service. These are more specific questions, and I think here, to be just on the safe side, I wouldn't want to provide any wrong information. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. It's always good if you have a very specific question to pose it directly. So here, under which organization should a postdoc register in the online portal? The current institution or institution where we want to do our postdoctoral fellowship? I think we need to distinguish here between whether we're just talking about making an account or part of a proposal. I think if you're making an account, it's your own personal account. And as we heard, it might be complicated if you have to merge two different accounts, but I would register with your current institution because that's where you now are. You mentioned postdoctoral fellowships, so to me it sounds like you are looking ahead to some kind of Marie Sklodowska-Curie application, in which case I would say read carefully the very detailed instructions on the MSCA part of the call to read exactly the way it works. My gut feeling, without being an expert, would be that you apply in your current institution and that you liaise with where you would like to do your postdoctoral fellowship, and that institution also needs to be part of the application. But these are very specific cases and specific questions, so I would first say to read that, to check the FAQs related to the call in question, and again, if not, the Research Inquiry Service can help you. I don't know if the colleagues want to. No. Next question.
Will be our last question.
I think will be our last question, yes, because we have 2 minutes left, except this one I think we've really already answered.
Yes.
So certain projects are unrelated to gender. What are you supposed to write about if you're about quantum technology or space research? Our answer would be, if those drafting the work program also agree that there is no relevance to the gender dimension, they will have explicitly written this in the topic text that you do not need to write about gender. And it's not about gender equality, it's about the gender dimension which could affect the research. So I think if it's clearly out of scope, that will also be indicated, so you don't need to worry about it.
Maybe I can add one more thing.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, also in the guidance that is prepared in the application form, if you see that the gender dimension is for some issues that you really don't see the gender dimension in the that you cannot really display it accordingly. I think there's also, if you provide a sufficient justification, this should also be considered. That so you have to really think about the gender dimension, but how you take it into account, this is really up to you to describe it in your proposal. Unless, of course, what Alison already mentioned, it's an exception in the work program, then you don't have to worry. But if it's not, you have to take it into account. But how you take it into account, this is then up to you in the proposal. So this would be, maybe this helps a little bit.
Yes. And I would just add that there are many cases where people in the past have thought that the gender dimension was not relevant to their subject, and then astronauts discover they happen to be female and none of the spacesuits fit them because they're made for different shaped bodies. So I think at that point it's 1 o'clock. It's a good moment to wrap up. Thank you very much to all of you who are following, who have been following all morning, to all the colleagues who have participated throughout this morning, and now especially to Miguel and Izabela, who've been very active in answering all your questions. Thank you very much.